It was the year 4280 of the Yulan calendar, in the province of Yulan, where an array of diverse reptilian beings populated the land. Out of nowhere, a massive blast erupted from the sky and crashed to the ground. The impact jolted the surroundings and sent shockwaves through the area. The creatures, scared and anxious, watched as a young woman with pink hair emerged from the blast's aftermath, dressed in black. Her name was Delan Cowart. Delan Cowart was a Magus in a face-off with another Magus named Hamelin. They were engaged in an intense battle, and Delan Cowart was provocative towards her opponent, humiliating him for being old and mocking him for not facing her directly. Delan was a saint-level Magus, who harnessed the Earth's elemental power to cast her spells. Hamelin was a fire Magus, who used the fire element for his magic. She initiated the confrontation by launching her opening move, wielding her cane to cast a spell known as Heaven's Boulder, which hurtled towards Hamelin. Hamelin countered the oncoming assault with his staff, and revealed that Delan had been stalking him persistently for 3 days straight to have a deathmatch with him. Delan, however, scoffed at him for calling their confrontation a deathmatch, and asserted that it was he who was going to die. Hamelin warned her against their duel, stating that if they did engage with each other, no one would win since both of them were saint-level magi. Nonetheless, he made it clear that he did not intend to withdraw from the challenge. He attacked her with his fire spell, the Dance of the Salamander, casting a fire dragon toward her. Delan appeared remarkably unfazed to his dismay, effortlessly deflecting the fiery assault with her own power, the Earth Guardian armor. This only frustrated Hamelin more. He goaded Delan for hiding like a turtle under a shell and not facing him head-on. Unreactive towards the insult, she retorted that not even Hamelin's taunts could shake her. She questioned how he could claim to be the strongest fighter when such was the extent of his abilities. However, Delan found herself ambushed and under attack by a bandage-wrapped swordsman who had been hiding in plain sight. The swordsman started relentlessly attacking her with his sword, which she tried to meet head-on, although most of his attacks were deflected by Delan. Close combat was not her forte, so she resorted to using a forbidden arts spell on him. Unlucky for her, the swordsman was faster than her meteor shower. He managed to close the gap between them with his speed, with the help of Hamelin, who again cast fire magic on her and caught her off guard. The flames managed to damage Delan and cover her senses completely. Meanwhile, the swordsman, whose attacks were initially being deflected by Delan, managed to sneak onto her and pierce his sword through her ribs. It was revealed that Hamelin had been planning this ambush for a while and lured her to the swordsman all this time. Delan, battered and bruised, called him spinless and unconfident in his abilities as a Magus. Hamelin didn't care as long as he managed to absorb her powers. So, in an adrenaline fit, Delan told him she wouldn't go down this easy, and even if he trained for 100 more years, he still wouldn't be able to come close to her power. She then bowed to the ground and cast another spell, Heavenly Earth Collapse, using her ring adorned with a dragon on it. The resulting devastation wreaked havoc on the surrounding area. Hamelin tried to deflect it with his fire but failed, and an intense explosion erupted, completely changing the geography of the vicinity. Delan's ring got buried amidst all this chaos, in the city of Wushan of Fenlai Kingdom, near the magical Beast Mountain range. 2 men stood on the sidelines, observing a training field filled with children. One of the men commented on the number of new recruits today, noting that enthusiasm levels were running high. Their attention, however, quickly shifted to one particular boy. He was engaged in a hand-to-hand combat session with another trainee twice his size. This particular boy was Linley Baruch. The 2 men exchanged glances and acknowledged that Linley was undoubtedly the future leader of Wushan. They added that it was only natural that he was strongest among the children in this academy. Yet one of the men was worried about Linley's current opponent, given the size difference he had with him. In the training field, Linley Baruch, our protagonist, faced a boy twice his size. The larger boy taunted Linley, mocking him for being small and implying he wasn't on the same level. To everyone's surprise, Linley swiftly and efficiently overpowered his opponent, taking him down. As this unfolded, the 2 men who had been watching Linley's progress were joined by the captain of the training guard. The captain was visibly impressed by Linley's remarkable skills. He inquired about how the kids were doing in their training, and the 2 men informed him that these young trainees were surpassing them at this age, with Linley standing out the most. Intrigued by Linley's potential, the captain decided to put his skills to the test. He approached Linley and attacked him with his spear. Linley showed incredible agility and evaded the attack skillfully. In a surprising move, Linley maneuvered himself onto the spear, rendering it immobile. The captain praised Linley for matching his skills head-on and hinting that Linley might be the prodigy not just of Wushan, but possibly the entire Fenlai Kingdom. The captain then taught the trainees the basics of being a warrior. According to him, warriors were divided into 9 levels. All these levels were based on strength and power. To illustrate this concept, the captain lightly touched a nearby boulder, causing it to shatter into countless fragments. He added that this was what a level 6 warrior could do. The Yulan continent was a war zone, and the men there had to become warriors to prove their worth to survive the unforgiving environment. So, Reaching at least level 1 was a fundamental requirement for a man to be considered worthy and competent. Acquiring level 1 was also mandatory for a man to gain entry into the military. Those who managed to ascend to level 3 would easily secure a place as elite soldiers within the military ranks, and a level 5 or 6 could easily become captain. Level 7 and 8 warriors also existed, but they were rare and were mostly military generals. The captain told Linley that there was a gap in power between the warriors of different levels, and if he were to use his full strength against Linley, Linley wouldn't be able to dodge him. Level 9 warriors were even rarer. Even the captain himself had never met one. He affirmed that even in the Yulon province, the highest leveled warriors were level 8. These warriors were the generals of the military. The captain further revealed that level 9 was not the maximum level one could achieve. There had been legendary warriors in the past who could go to a level beyond level 9. Those were the 4 saint-level warriors, respectively, called Dragon Blood, Tiger Striped, Undying, and Violet Flame. They were rumored to have the strength to destroy an army of millions in seconds. The scene transitioned to the heart of the matter, to the main house of the Baruch clan, the clan which Linley belonged to and was an integral part of. Linley's father, Hog Baruch, sat alone within the ancestral hall, deep in thought. Hog remarked how Linley was now 12, and how time flew by very fast. As Hog carved a human face on a stone, he mused about revealing a certain truth to his son. Hog was worried over the potential threats to the existence of the Baruch clan. He recognized that only 2 of his sons remained, and that there was a possibility that the Baruch clan might cease to exist. He emphasized how Linley was his last chance for the survival of their clan and family, and wished that he wouldn't let him down. The Baruch clan manor was huge, but unkempt. Linley ran through the halls of it looking for his father, but unexpectedly came across his younger brother, Wharton. Wharton was eager to show Linley what he learned today, which was cleaning with a rag. He then demonstrated that to Linley by cleaning different objects, including their father's cherished dish set, which worried Linley. The manor's butler, Grandpa Heary, came in and told Linley that his father was in his parlor waiting for some guests. Before leaving to see his father, Linley advised Wharton not to tell his father he wiped his favorite dish set. When Linley went to Hog's parlor, the latter inquired about his first training day. He advised Linley to do better than the other children because he was the future leader of Wushan, and a lot was resting on his shoulders. Linley noted that his father was relatively unhappy today. Linley asked about their plans for the day, wondering if they'd have their usual classes. His father directed Linley's attention to their previous lesson, and asked him to repeat what he learned yesterday about the fractions within Yulon. To the west of the mountain range of the magical beasts, there were 12 kingdoms and 32 duchies, divided into 2 predominant factions. The first, known as the Holy Union, was led by the principal kingdom of Fenlai. The second faction, the Dark Alliance, revolved around the principal power of the kingdom of Heishi. These 2 were in a state of perpetual conflict, their war driven by the influences of their respective controlling bodies, the Radiant Church for the Holy Union and the Cult of Shadows for the Dark Alliance. To the east of the mountain range of magical beasts, there were 4 empires, 6 major kingdoms, and countless duchies. These 4 empires were completely independent and were not influenced by war. These empires were controlled by emperors whose word was the absolute law. These 4 empires remained largely independent and sovereign, each on par with the Holy Union. They were called the Yulon Empire, Rhine Empire, Ralt Empire, and the Northern O'Brien Empire. The learning session was interrupted, and the atmosphere shifted when a merchant named Philip arrived to meet Hog. Before leaving to attend to the merchant's business, Linley's father advised him, "We must know everything about the Holy Union because we are a part of it." The merchant inquired about something referred to as it. Hog explained that he had asked Hillman to bring it, which turned out to be a giant lion sculpture. As Philip examined the lion sculpture, he proposed a price of 500 gold for it. However, this seemed to deject Hog, because according to him, the lion was historically significant, and he was sure it would be valued higher than 500 gold. Philip acknowledged this, but told Hog that the sculpture was purely historically significant, and there wasn't much going on for it artistically. Amidst all this, Linley showed concern for his father selling the lion. He didn't like the idea of his father selling his prized possession and was about to object to it, but before he could do that, he was interrupted by Captain Hillman, who told him to not disturb his father's business. The merchant took away the lion, but not before offering Hillman a job to work for him as he could do better there, which he promptly refused. Hillman, also furious about the current state of their clan, revealed to Linley that a long time ago, their Baruch clan was the richest and most powerful of all. The new clans who looked down on them now had no idea how strong their clan was once. He was, however, interrupted by Hog, who advised Hillman to only focus on the future and not the past. He emphasized that talking about the past would only bring out the incompetence of the current generation of the Baruch clan. Hogg then consoled them, saying that he was only selling the historical sculptures to revive the previous glory of their clan. But Linley was still not thoroughly convinced. He asked his father why he didn't sell his own handmade sculptures, instead of the family heirloom. To his disdain, Hogg told him that while he did work hard on his sculptures, he was artistically unknown despite his talent. And no one would want to risk buying sculptures from an unknown artist. He added that although the Baruch clan had many master sculptors in the past, Hogg was not nearly as talented as them. He would not be able to make money out of his sculptures. Hillman regarded that with respect and told Linley that he had to become a level 8 warrior to fix his family's situation. Under the moonlit night, Hogg and Linley gathered in the ancestral hall, which Linley found odd as it was late. Hogg invited him closer and told him that he was now 12 years old and an adult according to the Baruch family tradition, and that the time had come for Linley to learn the truth about their clan's history. Hogg asked Linley to recite the family history that he was taught. According to it, the Baruch family were the descendants of a level 8 sculptor warrior who had created multiple sculpting and warrior techniques. But after his legacy, no one could reach his height of strength. Hogg revealed to Linley that this was not their true history. To show Linley the real truth, he slammed his hand onto a table, releasing a bright pink light that transported them into another realm. The intensity of the moment made Linley close his eyes, but once he opened them after the moment had passed, he saw several sculpted men lined in front of him. They were the sculptures of their family's ancestors. Shocked by what was unveiling before him, Linley turned to his father for an explanation. Hogg recounted that the first time he saw the statues, he was just as shocked as Linley, scared even. He then asked Linley if Captain Hillman had told him about the 4 warriors that surpassed level 8, to which he replied that Hillman told him that 4 Dragon Blood warriors defied all expectations and reached level 9. Hogg then delved into the details of the story of the first Dragon Blood warrior. His name was Baruch in the Yulon continent in the year 4560. The Dragon Blood warrior single-handedly conquered the Titanic Frost Worm and the Black Dragon. Later, in 4759, he slew the 9-headed Serpent Emperor. Baruch's legacy extended further. He laid the foundations of the Baruch clan and became its first leader. The second Dragon Blood warrior was Ryan Baruch, who also came from the Baruch clan in the year 4690. He tamed the Golden Dragon from the Mountain of Magical Beasts and became the Golden Dragon Rider Saint. He controlled most of the beasts from the mountain range, and his name was etched into the range's history because of it. The third Dragon Blood warrior went by the name of Hazard Baruch in the year 5393. Hazard Baruch was famous for fighting the Saint-level red-eyed lion from the mountain range and promptly defeating it. He also single-handedly supported the Holy Union and held against the Dark Alliance's forces alone. Hogg revealed that they were the descendants of the Dragon Blood bloodline. The Baruch clan had dragon blood in them for over 5,000 years, but no one outside the family knew this truth. Hogg continued, saying that their clan had been a dominant force long ago, a force that was not to be messed with. 100 years after the first Baruch, 4 saint-level Dragon Blood warriors had arisen, but the last one had appeared in the 8000s, and there had been no warrior since. Since then, the Baruch family's fortune had been on a decline, an undeniable fall from their previous glory. To becoming a Dragon Blood warrior required a significant presence of dragon blood within one's body. But throughout the years, the concentration of the dragon blood in the Baruch family had become lesser. However, there had been instances where certain individuals showed signs of high concentration of dragon blood in them. Hogg had hoped Linley had some dragon blood in him, so he could give him the secret Dragon Blood Manual to strengthen his powers. The Dragon Blood Manual was a powerful book that taught its readers how to manipulate their dragon blood to become a Dragon Blood warrior. It taught the reader how to become a Dragon Blood warrior and release powerful energy. However, the manual had been missing for 1,000 years and was kept a secret to protect their heritage. Hogg had placed the hopes of continuing their family's legacy in the hands of Linley and his brother. And now that Linley was 12 years old, he could accurately determine the dragon blood concentration in his blood. Hogg then revealed a needle-looking object to Linley. The Dragon Blood Needle was a powerful magical item that could accurately determine the concentration of the dragon blood in the body of the person who was pricked by it. Hogg attempted to determine Linley's dragon blood level using the needle-like object, but before he could finish, the ground shook violently, causing massive damage to the structures around them, and causing the statues on the altar to disappear. This made the father-son duo lose balance and fall. Hogg dropped the needle and ran out of the hall to investigate the source of the disturbance. After he was gone, and to Linley's surprise, the needle began to emit a red light. Near it, Linley noticed a strange ring on the ground with carvings of what he thought was an earthworm on it. Since he didn't know what to do with it, he decided to hold on to it for safekeeping. On the outskirts of Wushan, the captain and the 2 guards from the training ground were out on their nightly patrol. During their rounds, one of them expressed admiration for Linley's strength, wishing he had only half of it. Captain mused that it would take Linley 10 years to reach the level the captain was on currently. He also remarked that the Baruch family could, for some reason, not practice the secret dragon blood manual anymore. And because of that, predecessors could only reach a level 8 and nowhere beyond that. One of the guards asked Hillman what level Hog was, because he didn't look that strong to them. But before Hillman could respond, a sudden noise erupted from the direction of the magical beast mountain range. The loud sound caught their attention, prompting the trio to move towards it to investigate. As they reached the source of the disturbance, the captain saw a mysterious dark creature with ominous red eyes approaching them. The creature had some strange-looking people with an unusual appearance riding it. They praised the captain's quick reaction, time, and ability to notice them and react swiftly, acknowledging his power despite being from a relatively small village. This was a jab at the captain and his guards, which managed to provoke one of them. Based on their rugged appearances, the captain cautiously asked them if they were mercenaries, to which their leader replied that they indeed were. Captain Hillman admitted that their village was on the smaller side. However, he made it clear that the likes of these mercenaries weren't exactly going to receive a warm welcome here. The leader of the mercenaries, clearly insulted, ordered one of his men, Luke, to fight with the captain. Without hesitation, Luke swiftly dismounted from their strange ride and punched Roger, one of the patrol guards, squarely in the face. He also neutralized the other guard and shot straight for Captain Hillman with his strange bone-like blade. But just as Luke's blade was about to connect with the captain, Captain Hillman swiftly countered the attack with his spear. The impact of Captain Hillman's counterattack caused Luke to lose his balance and stumble backward. He cautioned the unwelcome guests, making it clear that if they weren't ready to face death head-on, they shouldn't dare to take him on. But Luke, furious at the outcome of the face-off, could not back down and charged at the captain once more with all his strength. He attacked the captain with a move he called Dao Qi, which turned his strange-looking sword red. But the captain effortlessly diverted the attack with his spear that took on a green hue. Before Luke could make another attempt to engage with Captain Hillman, he was stopped by the red-haired leader of their mercenary group. The leader once more recognized the captain's strength and clarified that there was no hostility between their group and him. He explained that they were merely seeking a place to rest for the night. Captain, understandably reluctant, told them Wushan was not a place for people like these mercenaries to rest in. But before the leader could chime in again, his attention was caught by something in the trees behind him. "He couldn't have caught up with us this fast," commented the leader. His attention was drawn to the sudden disturbance in the area, causing the forest trees to sway and disrupt the surroundings. Emerging from the trees was a huge red dragon, a 7th-rank magical beast called the Velocidragon. The sudden uproar caused a disturbance in the village, prompting them to turn on their lights and wake up. Meanwhile, in the ancestral hall, Linley found himself wearing the enigmatic earthworm ring around his neck, keeping it safe for his father until he returned. As he stepped out of the ancestral hall, he was stopped by his friends, who were surprised at him for sleeping through all the disturbance and noise. Linley explained that he hadn't heard a thing, assuming it was just a normal earthquake. However, they told him that an earthquake didn't cause the tremors and the noise. It was because a magical beast had made their way into the village. Linley realized that the ancestral hall possessed a unique power that could isolate sounds from the outside world. However, unbeknownst to Linley, the earthworm ring he wore had begun to emit a soft, mysterious blue light. Delan Cowart, the earth Magus who had died in her fight with the fire Magus Hamelin, materialized behind him as if waking up from a deep sleep. It seemed that it was Linley who had inadvertently triggered her awakening. The red dragon emerged out of the forest. It was massive compared to the mercenaries in the captain's group. But the dragon wasn't alone. A man in purple robes, a magician, was riding on the dragon's back. The magician was after the mercenaries. After revealing himself to them, he threatened them that he would not let them escape. The magician ordered the leader of the mercenaries to stop his bluffing and hand over the allegedly stolen item. From within his vest, the leader retrieved a black orb-like item. This object, known as the Debero Shadow Diamond, was a rare magical item that was worth 10k gold coins. It was a powerful object that could be a core for a weapon and a Magus' staff. For the former, it would make it stronger. For the latter, it would lessen the casting time. The Magus issued another warning to the mercenaries, making it clear that he was open to purchasing the diamond. However, due to the mercenaries' incessant refusal, he would forcefully take it from them. In response, the leader of the mercenaries disclosed that they had initially considered selling him the diamond. However, the Magus offered a mere 1,000 gold coins, despite the diamond's significantly higher value. They were not going to accept such unfair terms. The mercenaries collectively told their captain to not accept the meager offer of 1,000 gold coins. This decision made the Magus furious, prompting him to unleash his fire element spells on the group. The leader deflected the attack and announced that he and his group didn't want to resort to violence, but were left with no other choice now. The Magus made his dragon shoot a firebolt at the mercenaries. Swiftly, the mercenaries got into a battle formation. The 4 warrior mercenaries took the front, the 2 Magi positioned themselves at the back, and the archer stood in the middle. The Magi acted by flinging holy water at the dragon, aiming to immobilize it. Following the leader's command, they were instructed to pin the dragon down. Meanwhile, the leader kicked down the Wushan city watchpost, shattering it into small fragments. He hurled the debris at the dragon, although this had next to no effect on the creature. In response, the magician ridiculed the mercenaries. Dismissing their attempt to fight, he retaliated by tossing the tower debris back at them. Unfortunately, these actions resulted in significant damage to the city of Wushan. Most of the village was in ruins, with many buildings severely damaged or destroyed. A fire broke throughout the city, forcing residents to abandon their homes and evacuate. Recognizing the severity of the fight, the captain ordered all village residents to take refuge in the middle of the city to cushion the devastation and shield them from the fire. Meanwhile, the mercenaries continued confronting the dragon and its Magus without regard for the city's residents. The leader of the mercenaries asked his Magi to give him ice battle armor to protect himself from the dragon's fire. Meanwhile, the archer on her mount aimed her golden arrows at the Magus, making him even angrier. As a result, the entire city was engulfed in flames due to the ongoing clash between these two groups. In response, Captain Hillman had to make a crucial choice. Understanding the imminent danger, he evacuated all the residents, deeming it the safest course of action. He ordered his guards to quickly inform the Hog of this and start the process as soon as possible. Captain Hillman realized that the battle was spiraling out of control and would only lead to more losses if they stayed. The scene shifted to Linley and his friends rushing towards where the fight was taking place. They were thrilled at the idea of watching Captain Hillman fight a magical beast. Even Linley could not help but show his eagerness. However, they encountered villagers going the other way, evacuating from the battle zone. The village people warned Linley and his friends about going in the direction of the fight, stating that it was very dangerous, and the patrol guards had ordered everyone to evacuate the city immediately. Instead of listening to the villagers, the boys became more curious about the fight. They started running towards the battle scene, but were stopped by the patrol guards. Just then, a firebolt from the ongoing battle shot across the sky towards them. The sudden onslaught of the firebolt knocked Linley and his friends off, sending them stumbling back. The panicked guards ordered them to take cover somewhere, as their current location was far from safe. Considering how they were in the direct path of the battle, Linley inquired about the magical beast that was doing so much damage, and the guards revealed that it was no ordinary one. It was a level 7 velocidragon that was raised and trained by Magus. But before the guards could explain further, another firebolt was fired their way, and with it, one of the mercenaries, possibly dead, dropped to the ground. Captain Hillman rushed from the battle zone, surprised to see the Linley and the others so close to it. He asked them why they were there and ordered them to run as fast as possible. Another fireball hurtled toward them as Captain Hillman deflected it with his spear, narrowly avoiding disaster. He ordered Linley and the group to evacuate as soon as possible, stating that the mercenaries could not keep the Magus and his dragon at bay much longer. Meanwhile, the mercenaries were being trampled on completely and were losing the fight horribly. The Magus conceitedly laughed at the losing mercenaries and reminded them of his warning that they were no match for someone as strong as him. The leader was consumed by rage after seeing one of his teammates lose his life. In a desperate attempt to strike back against the Magus and his velocidragon, he charged towards them. He failed once again when the velocidragon hurled another fireball at him. The mercenary Magi tried to slow the velocidragon's fire down by using water-based spells on him as the warrior unit tried to slash the dragon with their swords, but all in vain. Tired of their useless attempts to fight the Magus attacked them one last time with a rank 8 magic spell, the Dance of the Fire Serpents. Delan, invisible to the spectators around her, witnessed the battle from the sidelines. The Magus's fire magic reminded her of her fight with Hamlin, and she was not amused by it. The Dance of the Fire Serpent spell completely engulfed the group of mercenaries, leaving them no chance of escape. In her final moments, the archer managed to release one last arrow at the Magus, but it proved useless, doing nothing to harm him. With the leader as the group's sole survivor, he gave one last shot to defeat the Magus by unleashing his Dao Qi, only for his efforts to be in complete vain. He lost his life because of the Magus's firepower. One of the Magi from the mercenary group, who had managed to survive, attempted to flee. Still, the Magus captured her using his lightning element, revealing that he wasn't a dual element Magus. Linley asked the captain what a dual element Magus was. The captain, shocked after witnessing the Magus's power, struggled to answer. If the Magus wanted to, he could destroy the entire city, and there was absolutely nothing Linley and the captain could do about it but await their inevitable doom. Delan, still observing the events from the sidelines, was unimpressed by the Magus's power, seeing as she had encountered stronger magi before. She mocked the children for being scared of a mere 8th rank and wondered how it was possible that she, a saint-level Magus, was awakened by such a weak kid. Delan couldn't help but wonder if there was something unique in Linley's bloodline that had assisted him in awakening her. In an attempt to demonstrate her own power, she tried to cast her earth element spell, the heavenly meteor descent. She failed miserably, still weak from the awakening. She only managed to summon a small rock that hit Linley on the back of his head, barely phasing him. After the Magus ended the mercenaries, he could finally obtain the magical item, the Debero Shadow Diamond. He had finally fulfilled his decade-long quest. Having secured the Debero Shadow Diamond, the magician shifted his attention to Linley and his group. He asked them who their leader was, and Captain Hillman stepped forward, stating it was him. The magician leered at the captain and mocked him for being a low-rank warrior. Surprisingly, instead of further hostility, he acknowledged all the damage his battle with the mercenaries caused, and in an attempt to somehow make up for that, he ordered the captain to take all the gold coins the mercenaries had on them right now. The captain thanked the Magus, and the magician mounted his Velocidragon and left. One of the guards, relieved that the Magus had left, asked the captain if they should follow the Magus's orders and take the gold coins from the dead mercenaries. Captain Hillman refused and ordered the dead mercenaries to be buried with their wealth so that it was left for their souls after they had passed on. The guard argued that many of the residents' houses were destroyed, and it should be okay for them to use the gold to help rebuild. However, Hogg, the head of the Baruch family, arrived and assured everyone that his family would cover the expenses for rebuilding the villagers' homes. He asked Hillman to report the damage to him. Hillman informed him of the events that unfolded, and how the Velocidragon and his Magus were so strong they could destroy whatever they wanted. Hogg then turned to Linley and asked about his well-being. Linley felt guilty, wondering if they could have defeated the dragon and the magician if he had been a dragon blood warrior. He was then reminded of the dragon blood needle in his pocket, which he returned to his father, eager to know the result. His father, however, shook his head, indicating that Linley did not possess any dragon blood, leaving Linley devastated. Hogg assured him that it was fine if he wasn't a dragon blood warrior. No one in their clan for the past 1,000 years could become one, and he shouldn't force himself to become one either. Hogg also assured Linley that even if they failed once, he was sure a time would come when their clan would return to their original glory. Hogg then ordered Linley to return home and rest, as too many things had happened that night, and they had to sleep it all off. Before leaving, Linley asked his father if there was a possibility he could become a magician if he couldn't be a dragon blood warrior. This question surprised both Hogg and Delan's apparition. She wondered if that was why the boy summoned her, but laughed it off, stating that if it were this easy to become a Magus, they wouldn't be so rare in the world. However, she suddenly felt some of her magic power returning to her. On the other side of the forest, the Magus, satisfied with his victory, was preparing to turn the Debero Shadow Diamond into his staff. However, a strange and unfamiliar magic spell interrupted him before he could complete this process. Red glowing rings appeared all around him, creating a barrier. Suddenly, a figure in white robes materialized before him. The unknown man acknowledged the Magus's strength. The Magus's strength wasn't bad since he managed to detect the man's presence quickly. The Magus instantly got into a defensive position and threw his heavenly fire tornado spell at him, engulfing him in flames. To his astonishment, the stranger emerged unscathed. The stranger taunted the Magus, declaring that there was no way he could defeat him with his current power. He swiftly approached the Magus, flexing his hand, severing his head off, and promptly defeating him. Delan, in her inner monologue, remarked how Magus were the most powerful people, standing on the top of the world. They manipulated the worldly elements that rendered them invincible to even the strongest warrior. Linley was woken up by his little brother Wharton for breakfast. He groggily went to the kitchen to get it when he was reminded of a strange dream he had last night. It turned out the dream was Delan telling him about the matters concerning becoming a magician. Linley's father, Hogg, asked his son if he was genuinely interested in becoming a magician. In response, Linley inquired whether someone like him could pursue such a path. Hogg explained to Linley that he would need to be accepted by the military to become a magician. Every year, during autumn, one magician was recruited for this role in the city of Linley. He continued that in their clan's rich history, only 2 people could become magi. Out of 10,000 individuals, only one possessed the potential to become a Magus' apprentice. Therefore, even if Linley wanted to become a Magus, his success would depend on whether he possessed extraordinary magical talent. Hogg then advised Linley to wait until the autumn recruitment to try his hand at it. As Linley and Horton worked on their sculpturing back at their estate, Linley could not stop thinking about what his father had told him. His father had mentioned that a Magus would typically hold a slight advantage between warriors and Magi of the same level. He was suddenly hit with the realization that the autumn recruitments tests were only 6 months away. He recalled what his father had said last night, that an 8th rank elemental Magus was stronger and more terrifying than a 9th rank warrior. The Magi ranks were divided into 9 levels, similar to that of warrior ranks. Rank 1 and Rank 2 Magi were beginners. Ranks 3 and 4 were intermediate. 5 and 6 were advanced, and the ones beyond lay at peak strength. Additionally, Magi had Saint-level ranks, which far surpassed the strength of Saint-level warriors. At most, a Saint warrior could kill 100 enemies in a swipe of a single sword. The most they could do was kill the commander of the army, only for the enemies to bring in a new one. In contrast, a single forbidden spell cast by a Magus of the same level had the potential to lay waste to an entire city. Hundreds and thousands of troops in the blink of an eye. There would be no need for a commander if there were no army to control, so a higher-level magician would have a tremendous impact in war. Captain Hillman gathered all the recruits for an emergency meeting at the training grounds, instructing them to stand at attention. The captain had gathered them to train them to fight magical beasts. He explained that after the previous day's events and their interaction with the 8th-level dual-element Magus, he and Hogg had decided to up their training. This was to better prepare them for similar potential future threats. These children needed to be strong to be able to protect themselves and their families. Hence, the captain was now taking them to the mountain range to fight real magical beasts. He then instructed the recruits to gather their essentials and prepare for the training. Addressing Linley, Captain Hillman acknowledged his strength and talent, but warned him about the danger of the upcoming trip. He wanted Linley to be absolutely sure before tagging along. Linley insisted on joining the group, and Captain Hillman sensed his resolution, allowing him to join the group. On the trip, Linley's resolve got stronger when he realized he had to help his dad with the clan, and to do so, he had to become strong. With Delan's apparition following him, Linley made his way through the forest, using his sword to cut down wild vines and branches in his path. Delan admired his determination, but was concerned about the dangers of traveling through the forest alone. She tried to tell him to get a companion. Suddenly, Linley was startled by a wild boar that emerged from a dense bush as he tried to navigate through the thick bushes. Delan then recalled back to the fight she had with Hamlin and wondered if the fight was too much for her. While the Earth Ring had protected her soul, it was unable to protect her body. Even if she did absorb some of the magic power from the fight, it was not enough to rejuvenate her. She tried to contact Linley through his dreams, but was cut off abruptly because of the low magic power in her body. Her body had no strength, and even if she tried to meditate to gather more power, she would be cut off from the outside world again. She could also not go too far away from the coiling dragon ring, but she held Linley in high regard for trying and admired him for his ambition, so she would help him as much as she could. Unaware of Delan's apparition, Linley was looking for an item Captain Hillman had hidden inside the forest. To pass the trial test, he had to find that item. He remarked that the forest was huge, and where could such a small item be possibly hidden? Only to realize that there was a possibility that the item was somewhere near a magical beast, because this trial was put in place to test the recruits' combat abilities in the first place. Delan saw Captain Hillman lurking about, coming to a relief seeing as Linley did have people protecting him from the dark if he got into trouble. However, Linley, in his ambitions, followed a rabbit into the deeper parts of a forest and was jumped by a big wolf-looking magical beast with big blue glowing eyes. It was a 3rd-rank magical beast that charged Linley as soon as it sensed him. Although Linley could initially dodge the wolf, he was way stronger. Delan tried to help him by using her Earth Elemental Collapsing Earth spell on the wolf, which deemed it unable to move. But since Delan herself was weak, that was all she could do right now, and she was hoping Linley would escape. Instead of running away, Linley took an offensive stance with his sword and charged at the beast with it. Delan tried to oppose it, but her opposition went to deaf ears as Linley could not see or hear her. The wolf clawed Linley's sword away from him, making him drop it. After his sword was deflected by the wolf, Linley had to deal with it barehandedly. He was frozen with fear, unable to do anything against it. The wolf bared his claws and charged at Linley, but he dodged it and made a run for it. He ran through the trees with Delan on his trail, encouraging him to go faster. Linley maneuvered through the forest smartly to get the wolf off his trail. Delan wondered where the captain was, who was hiding in the trees in case something bad happened to Linley. Captain Hillman had his fair share of trouble. He was surrounded by 4 similar wolves, whom he had to fend himself against. He was worried for Linley's safety as his own was compromised, and used his battle aura to move against them. On the other side of the forest, Linley was still trying to get the wolf off his back. Delan, not having enough magic in her body, was also unable to do anything as that wolf cornered Linley to the edge of a very big cliff. Linley noticed vines on the other side of the cliff. He decided to jump and grab them to save himself from the wolf. But before the wolf could attack him, it sensed some sort of danger, and left. Delan was also a bit skeptical of the situation. Captain Hillman also managed to defeat all 4 of the wolves and ended the trail by firing a signal beam to the sky that indicated his intention. Everyone, including Hogg and the house butler Grandpa Heary, saw the signal and the indication of the trial. Hogg immediately noted that something must have happened for it to end so soon, and it was not a small problem. Already shaken up by the wolf encounter, Linley was lying on the ground near the edge of a cliff when a strong wind started to blow abruptly. He had almost lost his balance because of it, and after gaining some ground, he looked above and saw a scaly tail appear from the bottom of the cliff. The tail belonged to a massive black dragon-looking beast. The black dragon was the reason the wind wolf ran away. It had sensed it and its sheer power and was scared off. The dragon was so massive that it covered the whole sky and was seen by hunters and recruits around the city. A masked Magus accompanied the dragon and was having a face-off with a man in green robes. The masked Magus referred to the man in green as Dillion, and Dillion referred to the masked Magus as Rudy. Rudy was a saint-level Magus, and Dillion was a strong swordsman himself. Rudy cast a spell on Dillion that was reflected by the latter through his sword. He then cast a stronger earth element spell known as the Giant Stone Array, creating a shower of large stones throughout the vicinity. And while Dillion could deflect the stone shower again, the others were not so lucky. Linley had to find cover from the raining boulders, and the village was devastated by it yet again. As the village leader, Hogg ordered all the villagers to shelter in the underground tunnels. Bolter Heary informed Hogg that everyone was underground, and it was time for him to go as well. He also remarked that Linley must be in trouble from all that, and suggested Hogg send someone to get him. Hogg was confident in his son, and told Butler Heary that Linley was part of the Baruch clan, and he needed to play the part by being able to protect himself from this boulder attack. Linley was swiftly dodging all the boulders. After a few close calls, he fell flat on his face. During this ordeal, Linley heard a squeak somewhere. He had accidentally fallen on a small mouse creature, who was angry at him for it. Another boulder came crashing their way, and Linley protected the mouse by kicking it away. But the force of the boulder was too much, and both the mouse and Linley fell off the cliff, hanging from only vines. Linley was bleeding from his head, and some of the blood dropped on top of the ring, which started to glow in an orange-red hue. He mustered some strength and got on top of the cliff, saving himself and the mouse. When he got on top of the cliff, Linley witnessed another strong earth element spell, the Yellow Earth Giant. It was a giant stone golem charging at the swordsman Dillion. The swordsman Dillion cut the stone golem into 2 pieces. However, despite being severed in half, the golem attempted to crush Dillion with its stone hands by trapping him. Rudy the Magus declared his magic to be strong and something no one could go against. He demanded something from Dillion, but the swordsman adamantly refused, declaring, "If I can't have it, no one can," before being crushed by the Earthguard's hands. Dillion was stronger than anticipated. He managed to break free from the golem's grasp by cutting its hands with his sword. He warned Rudy that the only way the Magus would get what he sought was over his lifeless body, and he had no intention of going down easily. With that, the swordsman flung himself towards the Magus at extraordinary speed. Before Dillion could deliver a fatal blow, Rudy proclaimed that killing him wouldn't be difficult, but suggested that it wasn't his time to die just yet. The Magus summoned his black dragon and departed, leaving Linley and the others behind. Linley watched the Magus's departure and noted that the saint-level Magus had left, but his Earthguard was still standing. The little mouse accompanying Linley tried to jump on the Earthguard but got punched off. Delan's apparition warned the 2 of them to stay away from the beast, as there was still lingering magic on it. But since Linley and the little mouse couldn't see Delan, it was too late. The stone giant was now chasing the little mouse, and Linley, in an attempt to help it, brought its attention towards himself by throwing a small rock at him. He boldly declared that he was Wushan's successor, prepared to take on the golem for its attack on their village. The beast went on a rampage against Linley, and launched a relentless assault on Linley. Linley dodged most of its attacks with precision, and planned to let it plummet to its demise by falling off the edge of a cliff. Linley came close to executing his plan, but the beast snatched at him just as he was about to fall. Linley and the beast plummeted off the cliff's edge. In a desperate attempt to save Linley, Delan cast a spell. The spell made Linley levitate in midair and allowed him to see Delan, who had been invisible all this time. Seeing Delan for the first time made Linley question her identity. This surprised Delan as it was the first time they had direct contact with each other. She introduced herself to Linley as Puong Empire's saint-level Magus. This seemed to shock Linley. He told Delan that the Puang Empire, which was created 8,000 years ago and went on to live for 3,000 years, went extinct during the Land War 5,000 years ago. Delan, visibly perplexed, asked Linley about the current year. To her amazement, Linley revealed that it was the year 9,990, indicating that she had been asleep for 5,000 years. Linley was eager to understand how Delan had saved him. She explained that she was able to come back thanks to his blood, and clarified that she was a powerful Magus who had resided inside the ring he was wearing around his neck. She then scolded Linley for his recklessness against the Earth Guard, emphasizing that its powers were derived directly from the Earth, making it highly powerful even against a sword saint. She then bluntly told Linley that he was weak, and did not have what it took to become a Magus and save his family. Delan revealed that she was bound to the ring Linley wore around his neck, and as a result, she was aware of everything Linley said, did, or even thought. Linley, eager to learn magic, expressed his desire and bowed respectfully to Delan, pleading with her to teach him. Delan responded by saying that she could only agree to teach Linley on one condition. He had to pass a test for her. She ordered Linley to finish off the Earth Guard that was also levitating with them. Linley initially expressed doubt, claiming he had no power to destroy the Earth Guard. However, as if in response to Delan's request, he suddenly conjured a sword-like weapon, surprising even himself with this newfound ability. Delan remarked that his affinity with his element was outstanding. Delan released the Earth Guard from her spell as if on cue, marking the start of the fight between it and Linley. Delan advised Linley to connect with his elemental magic, making it a part of his body. She emphasized that relying on brute force would be futile and a complete waste of time. Heeding Delan's advice, Linley managed to conjure up his first Earth element magic spell, Strike. With this newfound power, he sliced the Earth Guard in two, promptly securing his victory in the battle. Delan, proud, mentally remarked that even if he was no prodigy, Linley still had the potential to become a powerful Magus. Just like that, Delan, a powerful Magus from the past, managed to acquire a student, and Linley, a weak dragon blood warrior, managed to acquire a teacher. After the fight, Linley was peacefully asleep in his room when he was suddenly awoken by the presence of Delan standing before him. Seeing Delan standing before him startled him, and he told her to stop appearing in the middle of the night. Curious about Linley's newfound confidence, Delan inquired why he felt so pleased with himself. Linley explained that he was happy he defeated the Earth Guard on his own. However, Delan revealed that Linley's only contribution to the fight was him swinging his sword, activating his mental power, activating his magic, and then adjusting his spell was all her doing. Although this seemed to depress Linley for a moment, she asked him if he felt the power of magic. Linley acknowledged that even Captain Hillman, a level 6 warrior, would have struggled immensely to defeat the giant beast. But he was able to take it down instantly because of magic, regardless of Delan's help. Delan explained that while a Magus's physical strength might not rival a warrior's, they were mentally stronger. And by combining various kinds of magic, a Magus's combat capabilities far surpassed those of a warrior. Consequently, a dragon blood warrior stood little chance against a saint-level Magus. Innocently, Linley asked Delan why, if she possessed such immense power, she was now confined to being a spirit accessory, referring to her attachment to the ring. This made Delan angry, leading her to admonish Linley and give him a slight smack on his head. In her inner monologue, she recalled the time she fought with Hamlin, and how she was really strong back in her era, but now she was just a soul device. Delan revealed to Linley that because she used a forbidden spell, she became a device spirit, and if it weren't for him, she would never have been able to awaken. She explained that without his intervention, she would have remained in that state for God knows how long. Curious about how Linley summoned her, she inquired about it, but Linley shook his head, indicating he did not know either. Delan speculated that it might be connected to his blood, given that she was awakened when his blood touched the ring in the ancestral hall while he examined it. With the promise to teach him magic earlier, Delan declared herself as Linley's master. Linley eagerly asked if he could genuinely learn magic and become a Magus. However, before Delan could respond, Captain Hillman knocked on Linley's door, expressing concern for Linley's well-being after the day's shocking events. Panicking, Linley attempted to hide Delan, but she reassured him that Captain Hillman couldn't see her. The captain, relieved to find Linley safe, explained that he had originally been in the forest, following Linley to protect him, but had been attacked by a pack of wind wolves. He inquired how Linley had managed to escape both the Black Dragon and the Earth Guard. Upon Delan's warning not to reveal her existence, Linley made up a false story to appease the captain's curiosity. Captain Hillman expressed remorse for his inability to protect Linley and advised him to rest and sleep. Delan then coerced Linley to leave his bedroom window, urging him to begin their training in the mountains. She clarified that, as an Earth Element Magus, she could only teach him Earth magic. To get started, she instructed Linley to immediately begin meditating. She ordered him to sit on the ground, cross-legged, close his eyes, and focus his energy. She told him to try to connect with the earth and make a hand sign that would help him focus. In a moment of humor, Linley put both of his hands up in a V. She instructed him to simply point both fingers toward the ground, then encouraged him to think about becoming one with the earth, meditating to absorb its magical energy. To her astonishment, Linley felt his earth magic and made rocks revolve around him, demonstrating an extraordinary affinity for the earth element. Delan was surprised that his first meditation had such a massive effect. She remarked that there was a possibility that he was as strong, no even stronger than her when she was at this age. She wondered if it was a mere coincidence that they had met, or if it was something destined. Before Linley could showcase his newfound powers further, he ended up sneezing, getting distracted, and inadvertently dropping all the levitating rocks around him. The following morning, Linley was in high spirits as he joined his father, his little brother Wharton, and the butler Heary at the breakfast table. Wharton exclaimed that Linley was so good that he got out of an encounter with a black dragon and a wind wolf with only a small injury. He then excitedly asked Linley what the two creatures looked like. Hogg, their father, also expressed his pride in Linley's achievements, commending him for his performance. He noted that despite some minor problems, Linley had done quite well. Linley felt a sense of pride hearing his father's genuine compliment, as Hogg had rarely praised him so earnestly before. Out of nowhere, Delan appeared and questioned Linley about what was odd about his father showing concern for him. She chuckled, remarking that no one could see her, even if she made funny faces, and proceeded to do just that. However, when Hogg let out a heavy sigh, both Delan and Linley became suspicious, wondering if he could somehow sense her presence. To clarify, Linley asked Delan if there was a possibility that his father could sense her. Delan explained that only the master of the coiling dragon ring, Linley in this case, could communicate with her directly. Sensing her presence was a different matter. Only those on the same spirit level as her, such as those at the same level, could detect her. She added that if she concealed herself within the ring, even a saint-level Magus wouldn't be able to sense her. This revelation left Delan even more surprised, as Hogg Baruch seemed highly unlikely to be a saint-level Magus, given his lack of aura. She expressed her frustration, noting that he couldn't even save his own family's business. There was no way he was a saint-level Magus that could detect her. Linley observed his father suspiciously, before Hogg Baruch instructed him to stop daydreaming and urged him to eat before his meal grew cold. Linley's daily routine involved something like, in the mornings he trained with Hillman for physical strength, and at night he trained with Delan to enhance his magical abilities. As time passed, Linley's meditation practice bore fruit, and he was able to cast an earth tremor spell. Delan praised his growing destructive power, noting that it was becoming stronger, and he had mastered basic-level magic. However, she pointed out that his accuracy still needed improvement. Delan then reminded Linley of the approaching Magus recruitment test for the Magic Academy, sparking his determination to succeed for the sake of his family and clan. He declared that he must pass the Academy's induction test. In response, Delan scolded him, emphasizing that admission to the Academy wouldn't be solely based on his family background. Instead, he needed to work hard, especially considering the effort she had put into getting him to this point. Delan further warned Linley that being a magician involved more than just learning spells and meditating. Magicians had to manage various aspects of their lives, including dealing with teachers, finances, and qualifications. She assured him that he had the qualifications, and although they weren't the greatest, they were not all that bad. Money was the missing piece that could hinder his progress as a Magus. Being his teacher, she told him he didn't miss out on having a good teacher either. Linley, perplexed, asked Delan why that was the case. Wasn't magic just learning spells and meditating? Unfortunately, it wasn't. Delan explained that buying equipment, potions, and conducting experiments all required money, and were essential in becoming a Magus. This revelation disappointed Linley greatly, considering how his family was already struggling with money, prompting his father to sell family heirlooms to make ends meet. Linley had an idea. Linley hoped that taming a magical beast would help him and asked Delan about it. Such a creature would have immense magical powers. It would be able to assist Linley in fights. Delan, while testing Linley's dodging skills and throwing rocks at him mid-conversation, explained to him that magical beasts couldn't be summoned out of thin air. They had to be raised. Linley, who was unaware of this fact, did end up dodging Delan's attacks and getting complimented for his mental strength in return. She also informed him that to have a magical beast as a pet, one must prepare a contract with it, and that in itself required a lot of money. A magical beast like the Velocidragon came with a material fee of around 10k gold. Linley realized that his father and clan did not have that kind of money. However, Delan mentioned an alternative way to set up a contract with a magical beast, where it would be the beast that would initiate the contract. This made Linley wonder if there was a magical beast out there that would be willing to make a contract with him. Delan noticed a track of magical residue that led to a small broken-down stone shack, as if on cue, wondering if it might be a magical beast. She recalled the small magical mouse that kept following Linley after he had protected it from the Earthguard in his previous dangerous encounter. Delan then instructed Linley to go capture the mouse. It had entered the stone shack building through a small hole in one of its walls. Inside that stone shack, the little mouse had hidden the Debero shadow diamond that the hat Magus with the red dragon possessed. Linley, who was following the mouse, recognized the gem instantly. Delan ordered him to capture it again, which he did by grabbing his tail. This startled the mouse, and it ended up dropping the Debero shadow diamond. Holding the mouse by its tail, Linley remarked that the mouse looked like any other ordinary mouse. The mouse, in a fit of rage, bit Linley and broke free. The enraged mouse bit Linley and managed to break free. Delan explained that there were two types of magical mice. The first type, called stone-eater mice, were larger and traveled in groups, known for their strong senses that helped them locate rare gems. The second type, the shadow mice, were low-level magical beasts equivalent to level 3. They were fast and packed a powerful punch. Since this mouse was small and alone, it was likely a shadow mouse. Despite its low level, Delan instructed Linley to try to form a contract with the shadow mouse. If successful, it would become his pet. She also noted that since the mouse was low level, it could not see or sense her presence. She thought it would be a good idea to scare him into forming a contract with Linley. She started poking the mouse to scare and confuse him, and then turned into a demon-like creature that trapped it inside a small magic field and tried to make him form a contract with her if it wanted to escape. She was sure the little mouse would do it since shadow mice were cowards and would do anything to save themselves. But surprisingly, instead of being forced into forming a contract with Linley, in a sudden surge of strength, the little mouse mustered up all of its magical prowess to escape Delan in her demon-like form. Seeing this, Delan was sure this shadow mouse wasn't a regular magical beast mouse. Embarrassed about being outwitted by the mouse, she ordered Linley to get a net to capture it before it could escape. Instead, Linley had a different idea. He offered the mouse a grilled chicken treat to entice it into forming a contract. The mouse couldn't resist the temptation and slowly approached Linley to enjoy the treat. Delan, still embarrassed by the situation, exclaimed about how the mouse even allowed Linley to pet it. In an inner monologue, Delan reflected on how even her powers were useless against the shadow mouse. But despite that, it not only approached Linley out of its own will, but it also even let him pet it. A behavior that was very unusual for magical beasts, as they typically didn't like being touched. In an attempt to further appease the shadow mouse, Linley offered it the shadow diamond orb back, remarking that since the mouse had found it, the orb rightfully belonged to it. Linley also introduced himself to the mouse and told him that their stone shack was his family's ancestral hall, and the mouse was welcome to visit him any time. However, instead of returning the orb from Linley, the mouse bit him on his finger again. Smugly, Delan told him that magical beasts would always be unpredictable. However, she began to suspect that the mouse might be initiating a contract with Linley, which it did by touching its finger to Linley's bloody one from the bite. The contract that was formed between Linley and the shadow mouse was equal. Delan explained to Linley that an equal contract allowed one to interact freely with the magical beast. The beast would assist its owner in any task within its powers, strengthening their bond. Delan further explained that a magical beast could form only one equal contract with someone throughout its life. Unlike a master-slave contract, this contract was similar to a family bond, and forming one was challenging not only for the Magus, but also for the magical beast as well. It required them to feel extremely safe and secure with the person. The fact that the mouse had chosen to form an equal contract with Linley indicated that it felt very safe and comfortable with him. Delan added that once the mouse was an adult, it would be able to converse properly. Since it was still young, it could only make gibberish sounds. Linley decided to name it Bebe. With a magical beast in his hands, an equal contract formed. Linley remarked that it was time for him to prepare for the Magical Academy's entrance test. The Magic Academy was known as Ernst Academy. Anyone who dreamed of learning magic and becoming a high-level Magus had to get into this academy once in their lifetime. Their induction policy was very strict, and any Magus who could not get into this academy would be a third-rate Magus at best. Linley arrived in Fenley Kingdom with Hillman for his entrance test at Ernst Academy. The city's prosperity and wealth astounded him, as it was quite different from their humble Wushan village. Hillman noticed Linley's casual attitude towards the test and reassured him that it was okay if he didn't pass. Failing the test shouldn't be a big deal. This surprised Linley and angered Delan, who was invisible to Hillman. Hillman, in an attempt to comfort Linley in the possible outcome of his failing, mentioned to him that there was only one Dragonblood warrior in the Baruch family, and he had no magical talent. Therefore, not passing the test shouldn't bring down Linley's spirits. Linley casually told Hillman not to worry about him, leaving Hillman concerned. In a flashback, Hillman had argued with Hogg about his eagerness to take the Ernst Academy entrance test and to join the Magic Academy. He explained to Hogg that although he was happy Linley had found his passion, there was a possibility he would fail the test. He expressed concern that if Linley failed, it would shatter his confidence. Hogg, however, was unconcerned about the failing outcome and was confident in Linley's strength and determination. Back in the present, Hillman defeatedly admitted that he had been wrong and that Linley would be fine. They arrived at the Fenlai City's magic testing grounds for the academy, where many other candidates were gathered. The instructor evaluated candidates by having them touch a crystal ball that measured their magical affinity. He had already rejected a candidate merely because his magical affinity was too low. The instructor further added that if a person had low mental prowess as well as low elemental affinity, there was no point in attempting the tests. It was just a waste of money and time. Linley asked Delan about how the magical tests worked, and she explained that while they were outdated, they assessed a person's mental strength and elemental affinity. If one's mental prowess was 8 times greater than a normal person's, they would have a chance at becoming a Magus. Ernst Academy might even require their candidates to have mental strength 10 times stronger than normal. This worried Linley, and he asked her what his mental strength was. She assured him that his mental strength was exceptional, likely 20 times stronger than an average person's. And now that he was here, he might as well give the test. Linley asked his magical beast, Bebe, to go with Hillman, since magical beasts weren't allowed during the test. He moved through the crowd of candidates to the stage, where the instructor asked him to introduce himself. He was then asked to place his hand on the crystal, which began emitting a bright light, surprising everyone. As shocked as he was, the instructor explained that Linley had an exceptional affinity for both earth and wind elements, and even had an average affinity for fire. The instructor realized they had found a valuable candidate in Linley, and directed him to the magical array for the mental strength test. As he moved to the magical array, Linley asked Delan about the mental strength test. She warned him that he would experience a strong force to pressure his body to test his endurance. And right then, Linley felt a massive force on his back. To bear with it better, Linley started mediating just as Delan had taught him, with his hand signs. He endured the pressure for an impressive 20 minutes, astonishing everyone in the magical array, including Delan. The instructor complimented Linley on his ability to mediate and use the force on his back to his advantage. He added that in the history of this academy's entrance test, no one has ever done this before. He congratulated Linley on passing the exams, invited him to join the academy, and then instructed Linley to register for it. Everyone was ecstatic with the news. Hillman ordered Linley to go register, while he would get someone to break the good news to Linley's father. The registration area was in disarray, cluttered with someone's luggage. The registration official was frustrated, seeing such an excessive amount of luggage, and angrily ordered it to be removed and discarded. The luggage belonged to a man called Yale from the Holy Union, who happened to be the son of the owner of one of the 3 biggest companies operating in the continent of Yulan. Yale was a boisterous young man who strongly believed that it was disrespectful to refer to items as trash. In his view, one could never become a successful businessman if they didn't have a deep appreciation and love for their possessions. This only seemed to infuriate the registration official further. He grabbed one of Yale's bags and tossed it at him in his wrath. He sternly reminded Yale that this was a magic academy, and he was here to learn magic, not business. Amidst the chaos and commotion, Yale happened to notice Linley watching. He complimented Linley on his performance during the test, and casually informed him that they would be classmates at the academy. Linley asked him if he needed so much luggage for the academy, to which Yale obliviously replied that he hadn't bought much. This made Linley giggle, and he found Yale's personality to be interesting. As they continued in the registration area, they encountered another individual with a prominent scar on his face. This person stood on the sidelines and openly called Yale a mediocre idiot. He told Yale that he was only in this academy because of his wealth, and he did not nearly have enough qualifications to survive it. This angered Linley, who told this person not to be rude. Surprised at the two of them being friends, he insulted, "One who hangs around trash is also trash," and left. Yale told Linley about this mysterious person. His name was Rand, and he was one of the best students in the academy this year. Both his mental strength and elemental affinity were exceptional. Yale further added that he was possibly stronger and more qualified than Linley as well. While all that was happening, Bebe escaped from Linley and joined the growing crowd around the stage to witness another performance test. Delan noticed that there was an unusual elemental flow coming from the candidate giving the test. She also noted that the candidate had mental strength 60 times stronger than a normal person. While pushing through the crowd to see what was happening, Yale told Linley that the candidate was the Institute's prodigy and someone called Dixie's younger sister, Delia. Back in the village, everyone was happy about Linley's admission to the Ernst Academy. Linley said his goodbyes to Hillman, took a few of his belongings with him, and left for his adventures at the academy. Linley explained to Yale that Hillman was his father's childhood friend and was there every step of the way when he was growing up. Yale took to it and told Linley that everyone would like him a lot if he were from Yale's house. Yale was sure Linley had good skills and qualifications, considering he passed the performance test easily. Linley did not agree with him. He knew he had a lot coming for him in the future. Yale then truthfully told Linley that although his elemental affinity and mental strength were above average, Ernst Academy required extremely high-performing candidates. And if it weren't for his father paying the academy 10 times more gold than usual, he would never have been able to get in. This made Linley ponder his family money issues, and how his father had to sell their lion sculpture for a mere 500 gold. Yale then jokingly told Linley that the reason he came to Ernst Academy was to find a strong Magus girl. This made Linley think back on Delia, and he asked Yale about her. Yale grew suspicious and asked Linley if he liked her for him to suddenly start talking about her. Linley, completely flustered, denied that completely. To get a reaction out of Linley, Yale told him that Rand liked Delia as well. The two of them arrived in front of their dorm, numbered 109, which they had to share with 2 other students. Upon entering, Yale complained about the small size of the room. They encountered their 2 roommates, who introduced themselves. One guy was a blue-haired boy named George from Yulon, and the other was Reynolds from the O'Brien Empire. Linley introduced himself as well, and just as he was about to finish his introduction, Reynolds attacked him with his sword. Linley, quick on his feet, dodged Reynolds' attack instantly, earning a compliment from him. George explained that Reynolds wanted to become a swordsman, and had initially aimed to join the O'Brien Empire's School of the Best Swordsmen. However, he was sent to Ernst Academy, because they discovered magical talent in him. Reynolds excitedly declared Linley as his sparring partner from now on. Meanwhile, Yale had his workers move his belongings into the dorm and instructed one of them to inform his father not to bother him unless it was urgent. He then announced that everyone should select their rooms. Amidst all this commotion, Linley looked out the nearest window to see the full view of Ernst Academy. He found it unbelievable that he had managed to get in and wondered if he could become a level 7 or even a level 8 Magus. He thought to himself that although he couldn't become a warrior, he was determined to work hard to become a strong Magus for the sake of his family. Classes started the next day, and students were assigned to different classes based on their elemental affinity. Linley was unsure about which element class to join, but Delan advised him to choose the wind element class since she taught him the earth element best. Linley left Bebe a grilled chicken leg and asked him to stay in the dorm, as magical beasts weren't allowed in classes, and then he headed to his first class. Inside the classroom, there was a lot of excitement and discussion about someone being exceptionally strong. Linley initially thought they were talking about him, but quickly realized they were referring to Delia, who entered the class at that moment. It became evident that the Academy's prodigy was a wind element user. Delia entered the class radiating with confidence and took the seat beside Linley. In an attempt to strike up a conversation, she asked him if he was the double-element qualified kid everyone was talking about. She introduced herself officially, and he did the same. Just as they were about to shake hands, Yale interrupted with his introduction, much to Linley's annoyance. Amidst all this, their instructor arrived using one of his spells, garnering a reaction from the students. Trey, their teacher, introduced himself and explained that wind elemental magi were known for their speed and agility. He began the lesson by discussing the basics of wind elemental magic, mentioning that he had used a level 2 spell called Wind Blade to enter the class. He further explained that they could utilize a floating technique once a wind elemental magus reached level 5. Even the wind element's forbidden magic spells were the most destructive among all the elements. Trey mentioned a spell called the Annihilation Tempest, the most potent destructive spell, and another called the Dimension Edge, the most powerful single-target spell among all elements. Yale, sitting beside Linley, expressed his admiration for the wind element. He commented that the wind element was cool, and that the earth element only taught basics and was boring. This prompted Linley to ask him why he was in wind element class when he himself was an earth element user. Because Yale found the earth element class boring, he decided to seek out Linley and Delia. However, when their teacher Trey noticed them talking during the lesson, he hurled his wind blade at Yale and asked him to be quiet during class. When Trey, unaware of Yale's identity, asked for his name, it inexplicably offended him, leading him to storm out of the class in frustration. Delan was with Linley all this time and was offended at Yale calling the earth element weak. She revealed to Linley that elements could actually counter each other, and that all the elements had forbidden spells. Similar to wind element's forbidden spells, earth elements also had heavenly earth collapse and heavenly meteor descent. She then told Linley about her confrontation with Hamelin and his ambush, and how she used her heavenly earth collapse to take him down with her. Linley also inquired about the rock giant that they encountered. She told him that while the wind element's dimensional cut could physically cut through things and was very destructive, it was only a one-time thing. On the other hand, spells like the Earth Guard, once cast and summoned, remained in fights as long as they could absorb their magic from the surroundings. Linley then asked her what would happen if these two were used in coordination with each other. She further explained that two level 6 elements could easily take down a single level 7 element. Linley then wondered about how the qualifications of a Dragonblood warrior would contribute to all of this. She told him that if a person were a level 6 dual element user with the skills of a Dragonblood warrior, they would easily be a saint level user. She asked him if he was still not over the fact that he wasn't a Dragonblood warrior. Linley told her that it was only natural that he was. Since he was from the Baruch clan, they were famous for their Dragonblood warriors. Being unaware of Delan's presence made Trey think Linley was talking to himself and not focusing on the lesson. He threatened to use a windblade on him if he kept acting up in class. He then warned Linley and everyone in class that, while the Ernst Academy didn't have many strict rules, there was one rule that everyone had to follow no matter what. Every year, the Academy officials would run a test to examine a student's abilities, and only those who had leveled up could go up a grade. Once a student reached level 6, they were allowed to graduate. However, if one could not become a level 6 Magus in 60 years, they were bound to be kicked out of the Academy. Pretty lenient, if you ask me, Ilmao. Trey then resumed his lesson, and told the class that breathing was the first technique they would be learning. He asked everyone to take a deep breath to become one with the wind. After class, as Linley practiced his breathing technique taught by Trey, Delan noticed how it was very similar to Earth Element's meditation. Linley added that it relied on mental strength similar to Earth Element's, but just as Linley was about to do it again, Delan warned him of an incoming attack. A student, and one of Rand's accomplices, had attacked Linley with a fireball attack which Linley managed to dodge at the last minute. The boy, white-haired, laughed at Linley for being scared of it. He lied that the fire spell was just a joke, and that it wasn't even as dangerous as Linley made it out to be. Rand, accompanying the boy, further mocked Linley for not particularly being a big deal, despite being a dual-element prodigy. Linley was slightly burned and injured from his encounter with Rand and his friend. It was evident to Linley that Rand was harboring jealousy over Linley's growing closeness to Delia. Rand brazenly told Linley to stay away from Delia. Linley recalled Yale's earlier revelation about Rand having feelings for Delia. While Rand's assumption was incorrect, Linley was unhappy with Rand's unwarranted animosity towards him. So instead of clearing the confusion, Linley challenged Rand. Rand's friend told him to stand down, as he was the one who would deal with Linley. He continued to mock Linley, calling him names like Village Kid, and labeling him as trash, claiming that the Ernst Institute was not a place for someone like him. The boy hurled a level 1 fire spell known as Fire Tongue towards Linley that surrounded the latter on both sides. Delan urged Linley to use one of his spells, and he followed her advice, unleashing his Earth Tremor spell, just as she had taught him, and broke open the fire that was surrounding him. He then launched the same spell on Rand's friends, but Rand attacked Linley with his fire spell before the spell could hit him. Linley effortlessly dodged that spell to everyone's surprise, and Delan noticed little speckles of light around him as he did. She deduced that Linley had unconsciously tapped into the wind element, despite not knowing how to use it properly. Rand and Linley continued with their brawl by using their respective elements' level 1 spells, but ended up headbutting in the heat of the moment. Their brawl was abruptly halted when the wind element instructor Trey intervened, using his wind element spell to break up the fight. Trey asked Rand why he was here, considering he was a fire element user. Rand lied, claiming he was there to meet a friend, referring to Linley. In a taunting manner, Rand challenged Linley to a duel in the Academy's Challenger Ring, a challenge that Linley readily accepted. Trey then sent them on their way to settle their dispute. Delan and Linley moved to an open space to train for his fight against Rand. She was uncertain about it, and asked Linley if he was even ready to take him on. Linley assured her that although Rand was very strong, it was very likely that he would win. He had to try to take responsibility for everything that went down and give his best shot. Delan pointed out that, at his current training pace, he wouldn't be fully prepared for the duel in time. However, she offered a solution by promising to teach him a secret technique she had once used when she was alive. She then inquired whether Linley had any knowledge of swordplay. Standing in front of a training mannequin, Linley blindfolded himself, and mused that it was fortunate that Delan was testing his sword skills, since he had received training in swordsmanship back in the village. Linley effortlessly sliced the mannequin in half, feeling a sense of pride in the sword skills he had acquired back in Wushan village. However, Delan was far from satisfied. She stressed that his technique was quite mediocre and needed significant improvement. Delan proceeded to introduce him to another technique known as the flat blade. She revealed that during her lifetime, she had never taught this technique to anyone, and if Linley could master it, he could potentially become a level 6 Magus within a decade. Delan then instructed him to gather some tools and relocate to a place with a large boulder to begin his training. Linley gathered various tools, including scythes, axes, hammers, and various types of knives, such as jade bowl, oblique, round, triangle, and flat knives. Delan selected the flat knife from the collection and handed it to Linley. She instructed him to carve the boulder using only this single knife. Although this was odd for Linley, he went along with it because he was always interested in stone carving, considering their family's history. As he began using the flat knife to carve the boulder, he quickly realized that it was nearly impossible. Every time he tried to pierce the knife through the boulder, it bounced back due to the stone's extreme rigidity. In frustration, he exclaimed to Delan that opening up a rock with a flat knife was impossible. He expressed his disappointment about being promised a new earth spell, and questioned why they were learning how to carve stone instead. Delan went on to explain that stone carving often required a variety of tools like oblique knives, jade bowl knives, round knives, and triangle knives because the stone was incredibly hard and challenging to work with. However, Earth Magi had a natural affinity for earth elements and possessed a unique advantage. Their deep connection with the earth allowed them to cast earth spells with ease and manipulate the structure of stone. This meant they could control the shape of the material, making it easier to carve and shape. In an effort to demonstrate the technique, she closed her eyes and concentrated, attempting to sense the earth's energy. She began carving the stone with her flat knife, following its natural veins. She ended up carving a glorious dragon onto the stone with incredible ease. Linley was impressed at her ability to carve such a magnificent structure onto the stone using only a flat knife. According to her, using too many tools would hinder a mage's perception, and the result would not be as impressive. This is exactly why she only used a flat knife for her carving. This technique was known as the flat knife flow, and it was this very skill that was lost for 5,000 years because of her death. If Linley could master this skill, he would become a level 6 Magus in no time. In a comedic moment, Linley pondered selling the dragon sculpture to afford his tuition for the academy. This made Delan blurt out that nobles would try to buy her carvings for millions of gold coins in her time, but she never paid them any attention. If he wanted gold, he should sell his own sculptures. She then revealed that all her works were hidden under a secret basement, which was probably in ruins now, considering how thousands of years had passed. Linley grabbed the knife with newfound motivation to learn the flat knife flow technique and mused about becoming one with the earth element, feeling its inner essence. Like Delan, Linley closed his eyes and concentrated on feeling the earth's energy. He could feel the earth's viscosity, sensing the rock's inner essence like a galaxy, with lights moving within them like a slow, viscous liquid. He followed the flow of these lights, identifying cracks to exploit and break the rocks apart using his flat knife. Once he found the cracks, he instantly used his flat knife to break the rocks apart. Delan was impressed at how quickly Linley picked up this technique. She broke the good news that if he kept this up, he would be able to become a level 2 mage in 3 months. She thought to herself how Linley was not an ordinary kid, and it was really hard to find someone as talented as him. It usually took a normal person a long time to be able to reach level 2, but Linley could potentially achieve it in just 3 months. Back at the dorm, Linley broke the news about his fight with Rand to his roommate, making Yale panic about the little time he had to train. Linley assured Yale that he was going to become a level 2 Magus in 3 months and would be able to beat him easily. Yale reminded him that the fight with Rand was in 3 weeks and not 3 months. He then showed Linley a set of magical tools that could help him win the duel. These tools included a necklace that increased the spell's time, a magic blocking helmet, and a ring that increased magical damage. Although grateful, Linley rejected these tools. He wanted to win the fight with Rand, fair and square, relying on his power. George mentioned that Linley was very skilled with swords, and according to the Institute's rules, one didn't necessarily have to use magic to win duels. He then suggested that Linley use a sword in his fight to catch Rand off guard, as he wouldn't expect that. Delan, who was enjoying all the ideas being thrown around by Linley's friends, suggested that Linley use his newly learned flat blade flow against Rand with his flat knife. Linley, agreeing with Delan, declared loudly that he would use the flat blade he borrowed from Yale. All his roommates were in disbelief at Linley's declaration, stating that the flat knife was blunt and useless and could not cut properly. Linley used the knife on the nearest pillar to prove them wrong and broke it down into small pieces, bringing their dorm down with it. In the instructor's training room, the wind instructor Trey worked on his breathing techniques and practiced his floating techniques like he had taught his students. He was interrupted by a bulky man with red hair who applauded Trey for potentially becoming the first level 7 mage and leaving the academy. The man, whom Trey called Farine, was the instructor of the fire element class. He bragged about the fire element class having a really good student this time around, possibly referring to Rand, and told Trey he was looking forward to the duel between his fire student and Trey's wind student. This made Trey wonder if there were any good students in his class, and his mind went to one student in particular. On the day of the challenge, Linley and his roommates arrived at the Challenger Arena, where a crowd had already gathered. One of the instructors directed all the challengers to put their hands on the rock that was in the middle of the arena. The rock would automatically put the challenger in a group. Linley was categorized into Group 32. Linley's name appeared in the magic circle and had no current opponent. Linley also noticed Reynolds and Yale's names on the magic circle, who told him they would not let him fight alone. George was the only one who did not join the challenge. On the arrival of the fire element group, Rand and his lackey, the crowd was in an uproar. Rand spotted Linley in the crowd and scorned him, saying he wasn't sure if Linley was strong enough to come. Linley countered that by saying the same thing to Rand. This was apparently funny to Rand, as he exclaimed that he was the strongest candidate in this tournament, and without him, it would be unwatchable. He released a strong wave of steam to showcase his power, which damaged the area around him somewhat. The steam also ended up setting Yale's pants on fire, and he ran away in a panic, causing Rand to laugh at him and mock him further. However, Rand noticed Linley had used his wind element to shield himself from his stream. This caused a green glow around Linley. According to Delan, this was the wind element's power and the earth element's air guard wall. It was something no one had learned yet. Back to being his conceited self, Rand put his hand on the rock, saying that with his skill level, everyone in the challenge would probably be disqualified before they got a chance to fight him. On the magic circle, Linley's first opponent ended up being Rand. Rand sarcastically commented that Linley was out of luck for having someone as strong as him for an opponent. Linley, however, was excited about the fight and didn't pay much attention to Rand's insults. Delia was among the crowd witnessing the showdown between Rand and Linley, along with other participants. The wind instructor Trey approached her and urged her to sign up for the tournament. Having her as a wind element representative would be advantageous, and she would likely make it to the finals. Delia, however, apologized and explained to Trey that she didn't enjoy fighting and was actually scared of it, so she wouldn't be participating in the tournament. Though disappointed, Trey accepted her decision and asked if Delia knew anyone from their class who was participating. Before Delia could respond, Bebe barged into Trey, on his way to watch Linley's fight against Rand. The first group of the tournament consisted of Reynolds and Rand's lackey, whose name was revealed to be Raisin. Without warning or any heads up, Raisin attacked Reynolds using his level 1 fire element spell, the Fire Tongue, encircling Reynolds from all sides. Reynolds' entire body was engulfed in flames due to Raisin's spell, yet he appeared remarkably unaffected, showing no signs of pain or distress. Thinking that Reynolds was weak and defenseless, Raisin decided to launch a final attack. However, Reynolds had protective magic in place, rendering Raisin's fire spell ineffective. In a swift move, Reynolds grabbed Raisin by the collar and countered with his level 1 fire element spell known as Blue Fire. The entire hall got illuminated in blue light from his blue fire, and the spell hit Raisin particularly hard. The magic director and the match's judge promptly declared Reynolds as the clear victor of the match. Everyone, including Rand, was impressed by Reynolds' skill and courage. Instead of offering genuine praise, Rand arrogantly suggested that Reynolds become his lackey if he wished to become stronger, earning disapproving glances from the group. However, this attempt to assert dominance backfired on Rand, and Reynolds ordered him to join their dorm group instead. In utter disbelief, Rand started hysterically laughing and insulting the members further. The next match had finally begun, the long-awaited duel between Rand and Linley. Everyone, including Delia and Trey, was looking forward to their fight because of their ongoing rivalry since the start of the academy. Rand initiated the fight by using double the amount of his fireball magic than he did in their previous encounter. To Trey's surprise, Linley used Wind Element's level 1 spell known as Glide to evade Rand's fireball. Rand was relentless with his spells, seeing that Linley was on the defensive. He ridiculed Linley for having weak spells despite his strong fire magic. Linley managed to avoid most of Rand's spells by using Compressed Windblade, but was still surprised at their sheer power. Amid their duel, Delan advised Linley to focus on using wind spells to fight Rand. Although the idea sounded stupid, she explained that low-level earth spells were primarily defensive, and relying on them would put Linley at a disadvantage against Rand's relentless attacks. She added that using wind magic for evasion would also put Linley at a disadvantage, as he would have no offensive spells to use. Delan then directed Linley to use his flat blade technique against Rand. She encouraged him to imagine Rand's fireball attack as if it were a crack between rocks, and to apply the flat blade technique when Rand charged him with it. However, she also cautioned that Rand wasn't a stationary target like a rock and would be moving. This would require Linley to focus more than usual. Following Delan's orders, Linley located the pattern between the rocks in Rand's attacks. He instantly used his wind blade as a flat blade, successfully penetrating Rand's firewall and striking at Rand's core. This dispelled Rand's fire and caused him to tumble to the ground. However, it was not time for celebration yet. Rand, despite being disarmed, was still very much in the fight. Linley rushed forward to deliver what he hoped would be the final winning blow, but Rand had seen right through his attack. This time, Rand avoided Linley's flat blade and countered with his fireball, hitting him squarely. In a moment of desperation, Linley attempted to use his flat blade technique on Rand once more. However, Rand, having already learned how to counter Linley's technique, utilized his fire element to spin at incredibly high speeds. To everyone's surprise, this allowed him to strike Linley again with a powerful fireball, taking advantage of Linley's vulnerability. Linley had been struck particularly hard and lost significant blood, which greatly concerned Delan. Given Linley's exceptional mental strength, such a reaction was unexpected, even with the strong spell used against him. Delan's unease grew. At that very moment, Linley's little brother Wharton experienced a peculiar vision in which someone's blood seemed to cry. Thinking he had won the fight, Rand turned to declare Linley the loser. However, to everyone's surprise, Linley had seemingly lost control for unknown reasons and roared like a dragon. In an unexpected surge of power, Linley, seemingly in a frenzy, attacked Rand again, displaying abnormal strength and speed. Rand was unable to evade Linley's relentless assault and suffered significant damage. Meanwhile, Bebe, Linley's magical beast, had also been affected by the sudden power surge and behaved strangely. Delan realized this was likely due to the incomprehensible resonance phenomenon triggered by the equal contract between them. She grew increasingly concerned, fearing that this unknown and uncontrollable power could be related to Linley's dragon blood. As a last attempt, Rand again attacked Linley with his fireball, but it did not affect him. Linley, still unable to control himself, lunged at Rand again, but was stopped by the magic director's high-level water spell, the ice barrier. The magic director expressed his delight at Linley and Rand, acknowledging that they had likely surpassed the power of level 1 Magus students. He then turned to Linley, commending him for his performance, but noting that the type of element he wielded was beyond what Ernst Academy could teach. Rand's teacher demanded that the director disqualify Linley for not using conventional magic and declare Rand the winner. While agreeing with the disqualification, the director pointed out that it would reflect poorly on the academy if a student couldn't defeat someone without magic or, in Linley's case, with an unknown element. As a result, he declared the match a draw. The crowd was unhappy with that decision and demanded that Linley win since he was stronger than Rand. On the other hand, Linley had expended a significant amount of energy and power during the fight and was left physically drained. This made him fall unconscious right there on the stage, and he had to be taken to his dorm. Linley woke up with a start after some time, alone in his dorm, and Delan reassured him that he was safe. He asked what had happened, and she explained that Linley and Rand had fallen unconscious after the judge declared their match a draw. Rand's injuries were worse than Linley's, and he had to be hospitalized. After their fight, the tournament became kind of dull, but Reynolds ultimately ended up winning it. Delan then brought Linley's attention to something much more important. She told him that there was a possibility he was a dragon blood warrior. Delan explained to Linley that judging from his aura, he was definitely stronger than a level 1 warrior, possibly even at level 2. Linley was taken aback by this and questioned his strength. He was unsure whether that immense power he felt was even his. He exclaimed that there was no way he was a warrior. His father had told him that he had no dragon blood in his. Linley asked Delan not to speak of this anymore, clearly bothered by the revelation. This led Linley to reflect on his past and what had driven him to come to the Ernst Institute to become a Magus. His father's insistence that he couldn't become a dragon blood warrior motivated him to become stronger in the first place, to restore his family's status to its former glory. Delan sympathized with Linley, recognizing his heavy burden at such a young age and the confusion he must be feeling. However, she also believed this experience would give him an exceptionally strong will, making him stronger than everyone else. Hogg stood inside the Baruch family shrine at the Wushan village, performing the same ritual he had once done to determine Linley's dragon blood concentration. This time, however, the focus was on Horton. Hogg raised his voice, invoking the blessings of the ancestors, and asked them to bless Horton. Horton began to float in midair, and his eyes opened wide. He saw a vision of a dragon soaring high above him. The experience was overwhelming, and he fell back to the ground. Hogg quickly caught him, and Horton began to cough and complain of pain in his chest. Hillman entered the shrine and asked Hogg if the ceremony was over. Hogg was uncharacteristically quiet, but suddenly declared that Horton had the dragon blood in him, and that his and Horton's dragon blood resonated intensely. Turning to Hillman, Hogg made a plea. He asked Hillman to protect both Linley and Horton until they reached adulthood. He then passed Horton's unconscious body into Hillman and left the shrine in a frenzy. Hillman questioned what he intended to do. Hogg simply responded, "What I should have done long ago." A year had passed, and Linley was now 14 years old. He sat in his dorm room at Ernst Academy, meditating within a magic circle around him, just as Delan had taught him. After he completed his training, he turned to Delan, who had been observing his progress. Linley proudly stated that his mental strength had now reached the level of a level 3 mage. Delan acknowledged Linley's achievement and expressed her satisfaction with his progress under her guidance. She noted that his mental strength was increasing at a rate 6 times greater than that of an average person. These compliments made Linley think of his father all of a sudden. He couldn't help but wonder how happy his father would be if he could witness Linley's remarkable progress. Linley was abruptly interrupted by a shout from outside, calling him to come outside. Linley peered out of the window and spotted Rand standing there, shouting for him to come out and face him. Rand asked Linley for another match, stating he didn't care about the outcome, he would accept victory and defeat. Irritated by Rand's persistence, Linley yelled back that he was at the academy to study magic, not to engage in pointless duels with an idiot. Linley then used his earth element magic to block his window with rocks, so Rand would leave. Rand remained unwavering and kept shouting. Because of all the noise, became furious and impulsively decided to confront Rand to end the disturbance. However, George and Yale intervened and tried to knock some sense into him. They emphasized that there was no way he could defeat Rand, especially after Rand's significant improvement over the past year. Even their senior classmates avoided challenging him. In frustration, Yale ordered Linley to handle Rand and end the situation, but Linley declined and went to a nearby stove to prepare tea. As Linley was about to pour his tea, he noticed a dragon medallion in his peripheral vision. George informed him about a middle-aged warrior who had come looking for Linley, but left when he heard that Linley was in the middle of training. The warrior had left the medallion with Linley before departing. Linley abruptly ran to the window he had blocked and jumped out of it using his glide spell. However, instead of going for Rand, Linley jumped over him and made a beeline for the forest, with Rand in hot pursuit. He came to a halt when he spotted Hillman standing at some distance. Excited and happy to see Hillman, Linley ran toward him and shared a warm hug. Hillman complimented Linley for growing so tall, and Linley eagerly inquired about everyone back home. Then, Hillman broke the news about Wharton passing the dragon blood test and having a significant amount of dragon blood in him. Linley was ecstatic to hear this news, but was surprised when Hillman mentioned that Hogg had decided to send Wharton to the O'Brien Institute for training after learning about his dragon blood. Yale was eavesdropping on their conversation, and with the mention of O'Brien Institute, he revealed himself, much to Linley's annoyance. He then pointed out that the O'Brien Institute was not a cheap school, especially for non-citizens like members of the Baruch family. Hillman confirmed this by explaining that Hogg had to sell most of their possessions, including the pair of stone dragons at the mansion's front gate, just to cover Wharton's tuition. Hillman reassured Linley, saying there was always a solution to every problem, but he kept the news of Hogg leaving Wushan to himself. Yale chimed in, reminding Hillman that tuition wasn't the only expense. Lodging and training tools would also require money. This left Hillman flustered, and he decided to take up a job in the O'Brien Empire to help as much as possible. Linley, quiet throughout most of the conversation, at that moment had an idea. He left Hillman and Yale by lying that he had something to do. Yale followed Linley and offered to lend him money, but Linley declined, not wanting to keep taking favors from his friend. Yale was curious about Linley's plan and asked him what he intended to do. Linley simply replied that he needed Yale's assistance in making arrangements with that guy. Linley referred to Rand, whom he agreed to duel with in exchange for 10,000 gold. The two opponents met in front of Ernst's main building. As the word spread about the secret rematch between Linley and Rand, everyone close to them rushed towards the main building to witness the duel. Just like their previous encounter, the match started with Rand attacking Linley first, but this time he did so at close range. However, he quickly recalled Linley's mysterious elemental power from their previous fight and decided to retreat instead of going through with his close-range attack. Linley's friends laughed at how cautious Rand was being. Delia reminded them that Rand was just being cautious of Linley's strange power from their last fight. Rand then announced that if he couldn't use close-range spells, he would use long-range attacks to defeat Linley, and on cue, flung his fire spell at him that surrounded him from both sides. To counter that, Linley used a level 2 earth spell, Broken Stones, and combined it with his wind element Flat Blade to cut the rocks from broken stones, creating a barrage of rock projectiles that bombarded Rand. Delan, who was witnessing this, was left impressed by not only his skill, but his quick thinking as well. Rand attempted to shield himself from the incoming rock shower with his fire shield, but Linley's combined spell proved too powerful. It pierced through Rand's shield and disrupted his balance. As he fell, Rand cast his fire tongue spell at Linley, but Linley swiftly evaded using his glide spell. Linley used his powerful combination spell towards Rand once again, and yet again, Rand could not keep it from piercing his fire shield. In desperation, Rand resorted to insulting Linley and provoking him to fight with him head-on. Not fazed by his insults, Linley did get close to him. Seeing this as an opening, Rand launched his fireball again. Linley blocked the spell with a shield of rocks that were covering his hands. Rand cockily commented that the rock shield wouldn't do anything, and the fireball was already melting through. Linley summoned yet another meteor shower as a countermeasure. Linley used his mental strength to summon thousands of rocks at a time. Rand countered that by adding more fireballs to his spell. Delan pointed out that while the duel was intriguing, the fact that Linley was summoning his rocks at a fixed position might put him at a disadvantage. She wondered if there was an ulterior motive besides money behind Linley's reason to fight Rand. Meanwhile, Bebe observed the battle and attempted to jump onto the field to aid his master. However, Yale prevented Bebe from interfering, explaining that his participation would make the fight unfair for Linley and Rand. On the battlefield, Linley appeared to have exhausted his rock magic. Linley suddenly appeared to descend at a high speed, making Rand believe he had run out of magical energy. Seeing this as an opportunity, Rand launched another fireball. Linley, who had only pretended to be exhausted, countered it with another of his earth spells. Throughout the battle, Linley used weakened versions of his spells and was primarily on the defensive. It was now his turn to go on the offensive. He started spinning at high speeds and unleashed an attack known as the Broken Stone Windstorm, rotating eruption, inflicting critical damage on Rand, rendering him unable to continue the fight. Exhausted and defeated, Rand inquired about how much magical energy Linley had left. Linley confessed that he had none remaining, as he had used most of it to break through Rand's fireball. Rand then tossed his magic crystal card toward Linley. Inside the card was the promised gold, and all Linley had to do was withdraw it. Rand accepted his defeat graciously, but reminded him of their animosity and that he still hated him. Linley complimented Rand on being a great opponent and decided not to take his money anymore. Rand insisted that Linley hold on to the money until he became stronger to take it back, got up, and left. Delan suddenly appeared and praised Linley for his great wits during the battle. She complimented his prowess in close and long-range combat and his ability to effortlessly combine his elemental powers. Delan declared Linley to be exceptionally strong, stating that no one in his grade could defeat him anymore. Linley sighed with relief, grateful that his friends had not witnessed him going all out during the fight, only to be ambushed by their congratulations as they secretly watched from the bushes. When alone, Rand reflected on the battle and couldn't help but be intimidated by Linley's magical abilities. He concluded that Linley was a true monster and vowed never to face him in combat again. On the roof of his dorm, Linley held the magic crystal card and contemplated about the 10K gold. He realized that while it was a decent sum of money, it wouldn't be enough to cover all their financial needs, especially with Horton's ongoing training expenses. Linley knew he needed to find a way to make more money. Yale was eavesdropping on Linley again and suggested selling Linley's flat blade sculptures he made through his training. It would give him some extra money. Both Linley and Delan were opposed to the idea. Linley knew his skill level was not good enough, and the money he would make from selling the sculptures would not be enough. Delan, on the other hand, did not want that because Linley's sculpting skill was nowhere near worth selling for. His selling of his sculptures would be an insult to her. Yale eventually backtracked on the idea and left. As Linley followed Yale out of the dorm, he encountered Hillman. Hillman was here to say goodbye before leaving for Wushan to take care of a few important things. Linley handed Hillman the magic crystal card, explaining that it was to contribute to their family back home. Hillman was overwhelmed at the amount of money Linley had given him and asked where he managed to get so much. Linley told him about the battle. Hillman was impressed and patted him on the back. He assured Linley that he wasn't going to disappoint him either. Hillman left, thinking how much Linley had grown and how much his father would be proud of him. Back at his class, Linley requested his wind instructor Trey to allow him to train on the mountain range of magical beasts. This prompted whispers out of the class and rage out of Trey, who yelled at Linley for being reckless. Even the grade 5 students were not allowed to train on the mountain range of magical beasts. Linley was a mere grade 3 student. Linley tried to reason with Trey but was turned down completely. Trey told him the academy aimed to make the best Mage out of their students, not kill them. Linley promised him it wouldn't happen, and he'd be careful. Linley assured Trey that he would be cautious, but Trey warned him about the dangers of the mountain range. The mountain range was no place for an inexperienced mage. Even the strongest and highest level magi had trouble surviving there. Beasts as high as levels 8 and 9 have seemed to appear there. There was even a saint-level magical beast. On the mountain range, it was all about the survival of the fittest. Trey was unmoved. He refused to entertain Linley's request, but before he could say anything further, he was interrupted by the magical director. The professor used his ice power to drop down, and Linley sensed it and dodged solely out of instinct. The professor laughed and gestured towards Linley, saying he remembered him from his fight with Rand a year ago. Trey explained the whole situation to the director, of how Linley requested to go to the Mountain of Magical Beasts, and how he rejected his proposal. The professor assured Trey that although he was correct, there was something he was curious about. He laid out a piece of news from the Academy's gossip magazine that had intricate details of the fight between Linley and Rand. Its headline was, "One prodigy defeated by another." The professor excitedly told everyone that even the caretaker of the higher-level student thought of Linley as the most talented student, after someone called Dixie. The professor then revealed that he tested this theory through his icicle spell. Even Trey, who was the teacher, was not as alert as he should have been, but Linley sensed it way before and avoided it. He stated that Linley was not a regular grade 3 student and was qualified to train at the Magical Beast mountain range. The professor then questioned Linley about his reasons for going to the mountain range of magical beasts specifically. Linley couldn't reveal the real reason because Delan got him on board with the idea, convincing him that he would find a lot of magical beasts there, worth a really high amount of money. Instead, he told them that he was confident he could deal with the beasts. Professor warned him about getting too cocky, but ultimately agreed to let him go to the mountain range of magical beasts. Linley and the others' dorm was broken into by 3 men when everyone was asleep. These thieves appeared to know the occupants of the dorm well, and they headed straight for Linley's room, where they stole the dragon sculpture he had been carving. One of the masked figures told his young master to stop trying to break into his own dorm room. The thieves turned out to be Yale and his lackeys. Yale explained that he had resorted to stealing Linley's sculptures, because Linley initially didn't allow him to sell them. He ordered his lackeys to steal as many sculptures as possible before Linley woke up. They planned to take these stolen sculptures to the Prue Gallery to sell them. The Prue Gallery was known for art auctions. The following day, outside the Prue Gallery, a count was browsing through art pieces. He was approached by a seller who showed him a dragon sculpture. The seller tried to convince him to buy the sculpture. His selling point was its intricate scale design. While acknowledging its craftsmanship, the count found the sculpture lacking in soul. Yale, who was nearby, loudly called the count to look at the art he was selling. The seller scolded Yale for his rudeness and informed him of the count's status. Yale did not give his status much attention. He then presented Linley's Velocidragon sculpture to him, instantly catching the count's attention. The count was intrigued by the sculpture's cold and desolate feeling. He praised Yale for conveying such complex emotions, but, he continued, they were not enough. He pointed out the little mistakes he saw on the Velocidragon sculpture and wondered whether the artist used only one type of knife on the sculpture. He concluded that getting this much detail with just one tool was impossible. The count then asked Yale what the price was. Yale was initially going to sell it for 200 gold, but before he could say it out loud, the count agreed to buy it for 2,000. This surprised Yale so much that he was moved to tears. The count thought maybe he was selling the art short and agreed to pay 3K for it. When the count examined the sculpture much more closely, he was surprised to see Linley's name and age on it. The fact that a 14-year-old made it shocked him. This prompted the count to seek Linley at his academy. He sent his assistants to look for him around the institute. They came across Linley's teacher, Trey, and begged him to let them see Linley, because their curator wanted to meet him. On their request, Trey persuaded the academy director to lead them to Linley, who was undergoing harsh training on the Mountain of Magical Beasts. Linley and Bebe got caught in heavy rainfall at the Mountain of Magical Beasts. Linley used his wind elemental spell Windshield to protect himself and Bebe from the downpour. Delan chided him for using his spell for boring stuff. She was happy because the rain did not affect her, considering she was just an apparition and not a physical entity. She advised Linley to use his power wisely, because he was at the bottom of the food chain in the Mountain of Magical Beasts. He was weak and needed to save energy to defend himself against bigger threats than rain. The harsh environment of the mountain made it hard for Linley and Bebe to move. Because of all the fog, the visibility was low, and he could barely see beyond 30 meters. He used his wind detection spell to scan through the area to detect any underlying threats or predators. He did end up catching a level 1 beast rabbit 60 meters from his location. There was also a level 2 scorpion beast a few meters away. Delan advised him to always pay attention to his surroundings, because there were high-level beasts that could camouflage themselves. Linley asked her how he could counter the two beasts he detected, but she was distracted by something else. Delan sensed that something was off. She used her Earth Element's detection spell called the Earth Pulse Echo to scout the surroundings. She informed Linley of an ongoing battle in the southwest. She reassured Linley that it was okay if he couldn't use this spell yet. It was because his range was not long enough. He should focus on surviving for now. They ran to check out the commotion in the southwest. They came across 3 men engaged in battle with a level 5 magical beast lizard. 2 of them were level 4 warriors, Marte and Cowart, and one with the cape was a level 5 Magus called Dashti. They managed to overpower the lizard and eventually defeat it. Linley, who was hidden from plain sight, witnessed this confrontation. Delan told him to stay away from anything that wasn't his business. But before he could heed her advice, the Magus Dashti detected him using his wind detection spell and called him out. Linley was surprised that Dashti had recognized him. Dashti reminded him that they were once in the same wind element class. Linley remembered that Dashti was indeed in one of the wind classes in which all 3, 4, 5 came together for a thesis. Dashti introduced him to his warrior partners, who were distracted over finding a crystal from the lizard's body after defeating it. Dashti also mentioned that Linley was on the same level as Dixie, which surprised the 2 warriors. Dashti invited Linley to join them on their hunt for more magical beasts. He believed there was a chance they would come across a level 7 beast, and with Linley on their side, they could easily defeat and collect around 10k gold. However, before Linley could respond, an arrow pierced Dashti's chest, shot from an unknown location. The group realized they were being ambushed by someone or something. With Dashti dead, the warriors called out to the assailant, demanding they reveal themselves. Linley was ready to intervene in the fight, but was stopped by Delan, who advised him that the attacker was probably a level 5 or 6 mage, and there was no way Linley could defeat him at his current level. Delan also noted that the attacker had the advantage of positioning and was likely preparing to shoot another arrow. She then pinpointed where the second attack would come from, allowing Linley to avoid it at the last minute. The second round of arrows struck one of the warriors, killing him instantly. Delan told Linley to run, and the archer, deeming Linley a bigger threat than the surviving warrior, shot another arrow towards him. Linley once again dodged the attack and escaped the attacker unscathed. The archer went to loot the 2 men he killed and remarked how they had nothing on them. His attention was then caught by someone in blue robes and blonde hair who disapproved of him picking on the weak. This man was the famous Dixie, a powerful level 5 Magus student with thunder elemental powers. The archer shot another of his arrows toward Dixie, but Dixie proved too strong for him. He destroyed the archer's arrow with his level 5 thunder elemental spell, Thunderstorm, and used the same spell to attack the archer, defeating him instantly. Dixie was also revealed to be Delia's elder brother. Delia had asked him to look out for Linley in the mountain range, since they were going on to train around the same time. He considered Linley weak and was insulted by the fact that everyone was comparing the 2 of them. His sister also bothered him by asking him to take care of Linley. Dixie opted to observe Linley from a distance to see how he would fare in the intense environment of the mountain. Linley had managed to escape the archer safely. He was running down a hill when he came across several earth scorpions. Delan reassured him that earth scorpions were weak and would not threaten him. They were already fleeing after seeing Linley pass through them. But when they all dispersed, Linley saw they were gathered around a corpse. Delan observed the wound and deduced that the man probably died from someone stabbing him in the heart. This made Linley reconsider his decision to come to the mountain. He was in disbelief at how brutal it was. Delan remarked that killing a person was easier than training on the mountain of magical beasts. But Linley decided to persevere. He was going to see through his training till the end. Delan warned him that he shouldn't believe every person he comes across here, because everyone on this mountain probably holds some dark secrets. After all that he went through on his first day at the Mountain of Magical Beasts, Linley was trying to be as cautious as he could this time around. He used his wind detection spell to scan his surroundings once more, detecting a level 3 earth beast known as the Unibore a few meters away from him. Delan suggested that Linley use the beast as a sparring opponent for training. However, when Linley approached the Unibore, he noticed it was chasing a young girl with a red scarf around her neck and bandages covering one side of her face. Linley instantly jumped in to protect her, kicking away the boar when it got too close. The frightened girl ran to shield herself from the boar behind Linley. The beast, being a level 3 earth elemental beast, used a spell called Earth Spike to attack the 2, which Linley barely dodged with his wind glide. Then, Linley fought back with his Earth Tremor and Tornado spells, defeating the beast. The girl, who had witnessed all of this, was impressed. She called Linley strong and begged him to let her follow him through the mountain. She explained to Linley that the boar had killed her companions, leaving her as the sole survivor. Linley agreed to let her accompany her, but Delan was suspicious. She cautioned Linley against trusting the girl blindly, but was dismissed and told that she was being paranoid. He reasoned with her that helping someone might prompt them to help him next when he would be in trouble. However, Delan was still not completely convinced and kept her guard up against the girl. The girl suggested that she was hungry and that they should cook something. They started grilling the boar they killed, and Linley asked why she was this hungry. She told him that her partners had died trying to protect her, and she had been running all this time to save herself from trouble. Linley assured her that he would now protect her. He took out the crystal from the boar and observed it closely, remarking that it wouldn't be worth a lot if he sold it, and that he had to find higher-level beasts to get crystals worth more gold. He added that as long as they stayed away from the outskirts of the mountain, they would be safe from really high-level beasts. Unbeknownst to Linley, the girl watched him closely and began to look at him with a menacing expression. Linley and the girl huddled beside a tree, trying to keep warm after the fire had been extinguished. Linley looked at her and wondered how Delan thought of her as dangerous, considering how she was so innocent and defenseless. He briefly dozed off but was abruptly awakened by a pack of wind wolves howling at their faces. The girl who had also woken up yelled at Linley, but he was one step ahead of her and already on top of a tree. He pulled her there and told her to stay back so he could deal with the imminent danger at hand. He jumped down at a very high speed and activated a level 5 earth elemental spell called the Earth Armor that covered his body in stone. All of the wolves that got hit by it were critically damaged and fell back. The girl atop the tree wondered how Linley could use a level 5 spell when he was just a level 3 Magus. In a flashback, we learned that it was Yale who told Linley about learning a higher level spell. While they did not have enough magical power to perform higher level spells at their full potential, they could learn to simplify that spell and use it as a low-level magic spell. He then offered Linley an Earth Element spellbook he had attained from higher-grade students. Back to the present. As Yale said, Linley had used a weaker version of a high-level spell to protect himself and simultaneously injure the Windwolves. But before Linley could take a breath of relief, another pack of Windwolves came and attacked him. These Windwolves were stronger than ordinary ones. They couldn't be detected with wind detection, and instead of running on the ground, they were using wind magic to float. The wolves sprinted towards Linley and proved to be too strong for him. He attempted to escape their onslaught by jumping to the nearest tree, but these wolves could use wind shades. They sliced through the tree, causing Linley to fall to the ground. Delan yelled at him to get away. His glide was not going to protect him against their wind blade. Instead, Linley somehow conjured up the whole wind armor and went all out against the wolves. Linley unleashed the full power of his earth armor and was completely covered with stone. The spell was so strong that it severely damaged one of the wind wolves with a single strike. Linley realized he had to finish these wolves as quickly as possible before using all his energy to keep up the earth armor. However, just as he was about to launch his attack, most of the wind wolves abruptly retreated, leaving Linley puzzled. This reminded Linley of the girl he left on the tree. The wolf had gone to hunt down the girl. They were circling the tree she was stuck on. Linley rushed to save her again and knocked some of the wolves out of the way in pursuit of that. However, just as he was about to finish them off, his earth armor wore off. Linley improvised by using his gravity field to make the wolves feel like they were under immense weight, pinning them to the ground. Delan advised him to eliminate them quickly, as the gravity field wouldn't last long. Delan instructed him to finish them off quickly, as even the gravity field would not be able to last long. Linley used Earth Spike, which had a wide area effect, to kill all the wolves in one shot. The girl who had been observing from the tree climbed down. She praised Linley for defeating so many magical beasts in a single blow. Exhausted and drained of energy, Linley let his guard down. Unexpectedly, the girl pulled out a knife and stabbed him. Linley was severely wounded and on the brink of unconsciousness. He recalled that the girl told him about her friends dying. He confronted her about it and asked her if she killed them. She confirmed that she indeed did. She sprung towards him again and stabbed him one more time. Bebe intervened to protect Linley, biting off the blade of the girl's knife. She tried to fight Bebe off, who was now going all out to attack her but was unable to, as Bebe turned about to be stronger than she had anticipated. Bebe was kicked off her by a man who had a similar appearance to her. He called her number 13 and told her she was indebted to him now. She threatened the man, who she called number 4, to stay away from her crystals. Linley was critically injured and was losing consciousness. Delan, who grew increasingly concerned for his life, asked him to use his magic, and that she would guide him through it, just like she did in the fight against the Earthguard stone golem. She tried to assist him with her limited power but asked him to take over. Linley was almost unconscious, and both the assailants were now closing in on him to finish him off. Bebe bit into Linley's arm, seemingly trying to rouse him. This seemed to trigger something in Linley. His wound healed, and he woke up. He regained consciousness and blocked number 4's attempt to stab him, though it left a minor scratch on him. He kicked the man off, got up, and reassured Delan that he was fine. "Number 4, taunted Linley, bragging about the number of magi he had killed in the mountain range. The opponent turned out to be a warrior. Linley used his gravity field on him and managed to subdue him. The man somehow countered the spell with great difficulty and got on his feet. But before the opponent could retaliate, Linley and Bebe swiftly moved to defeat him. Bebe latched onto the man's hand and bit it off. Both of the assailants, now scared and injured, ran away before Linley could do anything further. With the threat gone, Linley collapsed to the ground, utterly exhausted. He was regretful over trusting the girl and disregarding Delan's advice. Delan reassured him, telling him that he had to experience something like this firsthand to be able to learn from it. The good thing was that this experience made him a lot stronger, and he solved all of it by himself. However, the pain from his stab wound suddenly intensified. Delan explained that the earth spell Linley had used to heal himself was not a traditional healing spell like water element magic. As its effects faded, the pain would become 3 times worse than it currently was, leaving Linley in considerable agony. Back at the Ernst Academy dorm room, all of Linley's friends were wondering about his well-being. It had been a month since he had left, and there was no information about his safety. Even Delia hoped he was doing okay, and his brother was looking after him as she requested. Back at the mountain range, Linley was hunting for a boar near a water body. Hidden behind the trees, he cast his earth spikes on the boar, but because of its thick skin, did not do any major damage to it. He switched to his wind element, cast its roaring winds spell, and followed up with his sword attack. It instantly killed the boar, and Linley took its crystal and added it to his collection. Bebe had his own collection of crystals that he got from defeating more bandits similar to the Blackgarb bandits, numbers 4 and 13. Linley complimented Bebe for getting stronger. They had a total of 102 crystals. 5 of them were level 6, 26 were level 5, and 71 were level 4. Delan suggested that this amount was enough and would easily get him about 30k gold, and advised him to return to the academy, as he had been away for a month, and his friends and classmates were likely worried about him. However, Linley wanted to go further and explore the core of the mountain range. As Linley stood at the top of the mountain, gazing down at its core, he contemplated the challenges and dangers that lay ahead. He knew the core would not have low-level beasts in it. It would be filled with beasts reaching as high as levels 7 and 8. Even beasts such as the Velocidragon would probably be there. With that, he descended towards the mountain's core with his glide, with Bebe close on his trail. On reaching the bottom of the mountain, Linley encountered one of the warriors of Dasht's group, Marta, who had survived the archer. Marta recognized Linley immediately and appeared to have an unusual interest in his crystal pouch. In an attempt to get Linley to trust him, he proposed that they celebrate their survival with a feast. He had just killed another wild uniboar. He sliced and cooked the uniboar for Linley, but Linley gave it to Bebe instead. Marty inquired about Linley's plans and hinted that he would go with him. Linley insisted that they go their separate ways. But Mart was persistent that the two of them stick together. He dished out to Linley that he had been scared lately and was having trouble sleeping since he was so worried for his safety. He emphasized that being with Linley would put his mind at ease. Despite his initial reluctance, Linley agreed to let Marta accompany him. Delan and even Bebe were surprised at his decision, especially after his recent encounter with the girl who betrayed him. As they continued their journey together, Mart tried to make openings to strike at Linley and steal his crystal pouch, but Linley remained vigilant, keeping his guard up at all times. Bebe was also keeping a keen watch. In a sudden turn of events, Linley sent Bebe to investigate a possible ambush, leaving him alone with Marte. Seizing what he perceived as an opportunity, Marte drew his knife and lunged at Linley in an attempt to stab him. Linley swiftly caught him before he could inflict any sort of harm. When Linley turned around to confront Mart, he was unsurprised by the latter's betrayal. He delivered a firm blow to Marte's head. In their brawl, it became increasingly apparent that Mart was no match for Linley's strength and magical abilities. Linley questioned Mart's motives for attempting to harm him, and Mart confessed that he was interested in getting the crystals that Linley had. They were worth a lot of gold. Mart was desperate and tried to do everything he could to win. He attempted to engage Linley in close combat, but Linley's physical strength proved too strong for him. Linley cast his earth tremor on Marte, causing him to cry out at Linley's immense power. Dixie, the prodigy of Ernst Academy, was seen standing in the black-garbed assassin's base. He taunted them for hiding and threatened them to come out. Several of these assassins leaped out to attack him, but Dixie swiftly countered with a level 6 thunder element spell known as Thunderstorm Descent, wiping most of them out instantly. The leader of the black-garbed assassins, who was barely alive, looked to Dixie and warned him. He acknowledged underestimating Dixie's mental strength and magical power, but stated that Dixie was unprepared for what the leader had in store for him. He ominously told Dixie that his special power was to summon magical beasts in the vicinity and pay with his own life in return. As the leader disintegrated into thin air, A horde of high-level magical beasts materialized behind him, running right towards Dixie. Dixie noticed that some of the beasts were higher than level 9. He was not strong enough to escape them, and the only thing he could do was use up all of his magical power to create an electrical blast strong enough to scare them off. When he tried that, it did not affect the magical beasts, and they ignored his blast. He then decided to try to escape. Back at Linley's location, he had successfully defeated Marta, and was disappointed over how greedy humans could become. Delan commended him for it, and reassured him that his reaction was completely justified. Linley confessed that he had deliberately sent Bebe away to make Marta believe his guard was down, and to provoke a reaction from him. Unexpectedly, Bebe rushed back toward Linley, colliding with a tree in the process. Bebe had unintentionally attracted a velocidragon from the group of magical beasts Dixie was currently dealing with, and it followed Bebe back to Linley's location. The Vekali dragon had followed Bebe back to where Linley was. Although Linley was preparing to fight it, Delan sternly warned him that he was not powerful enough to take on a level 7 beast like the velocidragon. Meanwhile, Dixie had successfully managed to defeat most of the magical beasts. He was also aware of the velocidragon that had escaped towards the direction of Linley's location. Dixie assumed that Linley, with his capabilities, should be able to handle the situation. He was still suspicious of the assassins that had gathered here, stating that although the mountain was already very dubious, it was not where assassins would gather. He decided to investigate further into the matter. Despite Delan's warning, Linley was determined to fight the velocidragon. The attack on his village had left him traumatized, and he wanted to avenge his people. However, before he could take any action, Bebe developed the ability to speak and was evolving. He developed an unusual pair of limbs that granted him enhanced speed and power. Bebe had evolved and was now stronger. This prompted him to go straight for the velocidragon, despite the difference in their size. He attacked the velocidragon's jugular and pierced it with ease. Linley was about to intervene but was stopped by Delan. It was clear that Bebe needed no assistance and could handle the velocidragon himself fairly well. Delan pointed out how the velocidragon did not perceive Linley as a threat and was fully occupied with Bebe. Despite his small size, Bebe managed to inflict a lot of damage on the velocidragon, leaving visible bloody bite marks all over its armored body. However, the velocidragon did manage to land one hit on Bebe and sent him flying and crashing into a tree near them. This left Bebe immobilized, and he turned back to his original form, unable to fight the dragon anymore. Linley was smart enough to not engage with the dragon further. He quickly picked Bebe up and retreated to a safe distance. The encounter with the velocidragon left both Bebe and Linley exhausted, and they were resting on a grassy hill after escaping it. Still able to communicate, Bebe was asked by Linley about how it felt to fight a level 7 beast. Bebe replied that he could only fight the dragon fairly because of his stronger form. He wouldn't stand a chance against such opponents in his current form. Linley reassured him that he was still growing and that one day he would be the strongest of all the beasts. Delan, who was hovering over the cliff's edge, saw something that caught her attention. All three of them ran towards the mysterious event. Delan guided Linley towards the end of a small cliff that overlooked a massive canyon. Linley was curious about why she had taken them to this particular spot, and she revealed that she could sense something breathing at the bottom of the canyon. She wanted to investigate it, but could not stray too far away from the coiling dragon ring around Linley's neck. Linley attempted to use his wind detection to detect any potential dangers before he started his descent, but quickly realized that something was blocking his spell. A thick fog was covering the mouth of the canyon, preventing his wind detection from penetrating it. Delan's and Bebe's curiosity about the bottom of the canyon grew stronger, and they demanded that Linley go down. However, Linley was uncertain and hesitant about it. Then, unexpectedly, and to Linley's dismay, he lost his balance and tumbled down. But before he could fall, he used his floating technique to keep him from taking fall damage. It was another high-level spell that Linley had watered down to fit his magic level. Delan tried to poke Linley but was warned he could not control his balance and would fall. Delan was impressed that although most of his spells were weaker versions of stronger ones, she was still envious that he could cast so many. Using his floating technique, Linley carefully descended further down the canyon. He noticed that the more distance he covered, the bigger it got. This made Linley slightly worried as he asked Delan if she had ever heard of this place before. Delan admitted that although she hadn't, it looked dangerous, and Linley should stay on his guard. She made him listen carefully, and he could hear the voices of magical beasts nearby. Delan cautioned Linley that these creatures were likely even higher in level than the velocidragon he had encountered earlier. As they moved deeper into the canyon, Linley noticed a faint blue glow around his frame. Delan explained that this blue hue was exactly why she insisted Linley come down and explore the canyon. Just as they were talking, Linley's hand brushed against a plant that was emitting the same blue light. It was supposedly blueheart grass, and they had learned about it in class before. although he could not remember what it was used for. Delan asked him to pick it up since it could be worth much money. As Linley touched the plant, he felt a coldness emanating from it. Bebe, who was behind Linley all this time, smelled something strange in the air, but before Bebe could alert Linley, a massive reptilian beast emerged from the canyon wall. The beast lunged at Linley, almost swallowing him whole. Linley was, fortunately, faster than the snake. He took out his sword and slashed its mandibles, leaving it bleeding. This gave him enough time to escape and move to safety. However, his relief was short-lived, as he looked up and saw several more snake-like beasts emerging from the canyon walls. Linley sprinted away from the beasts in an attempt to save himself, but they were incredibly fast and closed in on him. Linley spotted another group of beasts approaching them, identified as dragonhawks. While these dragonhawks were the weakest of the dragon beasts, they were still incredibly hard to handle alone. Linley used his floating technique to elevate himself before the beastly groups could close in on him. Both groups ended up colliding with each other aggressively. Linley escaped the canyon but was not getting a break. A dragonhawk had separated from its group and followed Linley on the surface. Linley was completely drained from his previous encounter and could not use his wind magic to its full potential. In a last-ditch effort, he used a weaker version of Yellow Earth Giant to summon a stone golem to cushion the damage from the dragonhawk. But even that did not do much to stop the dragonhawk's aggression. With no choice left, Linley and Bebe confronted the beast head-on. Bebe turned back into his stronger form, and both of them lunged at the dragonhawk together. Coordinating their attacks, they managed to sever the dragonhawk's head and win the fight. Delan was pleased with Linley's remarkable progress in the Mountain of Magical Beasts, predicting that he would likely achieve the status of a level 7 Magus soon. She added that once he reached that level, he would have the ability to summon a Jade-level Earth Guardian armor and would be practically invulnerable to physical damage. Linley expressed his determination to surpass level 7 and reach level 9 despite being rare. Delan had faith that Linley, given his experiences in the mountain, had the potential to reach level 9 as well. Linley's training on the Mountain of Magical Beasts proved to be successful. He became a level 5 Magus, collected many magic crystals which he could sell later for gold, and even harvested the Blueheart grass. Don't forget to like and comment for the next part. Join our Discord for the name of the book and subscribe for more videos from us.